What it do, as my homie Sammy Baco says every time I call him. Did you see his part today, that My War? Anyway, this is Schmitty with episode 80 of my side project, a little podcast I do called Talkin Schmit. Today on the show is my good mate and filmer fantastique, Mr. Mike Manzoori. Mike was born and raised across the pond in England and followed his passion to California, where he was sponsored by PAL, ATM, Adrenaline, and more. Meanwhile, taking his craft of cinematographer to the next level. Mike's filmed with the best of the best in skateboarding and has filmed BMX insanity as well. He's done videos for Dinosaur Jr and the Pixies. His portfolio is prestigious and his personality is radiant. I love Mike and had a great time talking to him and even got to learn a few new things I didn't know, such as dinner at George Harrissons with Tony Hawk and Tom Petty.
At one end, Tom Petty and George Harrison are talking to the other end as Tony Hawk, Lance Mountain, and I'm in the middle, just this little kid, like kind of watching this tennis match of like, you know, superstars in their own realm, just doing their thing. And they were asking what it's like to be a pro skater and travel, and you know, they're sharing stories about what it's like to be a rock star and, you know, the fans. And there's a picture of me with the manor behind it, and I just look, the smile couldn't be bigger on my face. Like, it's just like ripping my face wide open, my smile. And so couldn't believe I was there.
We're pretty excited about reaching episode 80. And for this episode, we have a special contest for all you listeners out there. Whoever emails the first correct answer to TalkinSchmit@gmail.com will win $80 of Talkin Schmit merchandise and a bottle of Andy Roy's new signature Don Wapo hot sauce. Okay, so here's the challenge. In the opening of each week's show, there is a montage of my friends talking to me while the song by Nature plays in the background. Name each person in this week's montage and you will win the $80 of Talkin Schmit merch. You have to name each person in the correct order with the exception of the last person who says, "Let's hear it for Greg Smith." Then email me your list of names, and the first person who correctly lists all the people in the correct order will win. I may even throw in a couple extra surprise goodies. That's TalkinSchmit@gmail.com. And here's the intro.
Hi, this is Mike Manzoori, and you're listening to Talkin Schmit.
It's cool, like tonight is the night.
Here we go again.
Just give it the old college try, right now.
Big dog's in.
Schmitty!
96 times, Schmitty.
Thanks, Schmitty.
We on? Schmitty?
Talkin Schmit.
That's called go to the hospital, bitch. I'd be shitting my pants, man.
Your Rolodex is fucking deep.
It's about the one.
Who is this guy thinks he's tough shit?
What's up? We're tastemakers.
Come on, Schmitty, what the fuck?
Let's hear it for Greg Smith. Yeah!
All right, the honor is mine and the pleasure is yours. Folks, we got Mike Manzoori on the show this week. How you doing, Mike?
I'm doing very well, thanks. Nice to be here. Thanks for having me.
Good to see you. Like, it's been a minute, right?
A little bit, yeah. It's been a minute. We chat on the phone every once in a while, doing some footy swaps.
Yeah. How's things going? You been keeping it pretty locked in, or are you getting out still, or?
I've started to get out a little bit lately because I kind of needed to get some work going, and there was actually some work going because it was dead for a while. But yeah, I took the whole lockdown thing pretty seriously. Like, I don't know, even back in, I think, like February, I did a trip through New York, and I was wearing masks and stuff like that. Like, I was just, I don't know, just didn't want to take any chances. So, and actually, I got really sick in the beginning of March for a couple of weeks, like really heavy, like, you know, all kinds of symptoms. So I was kind of worried at the time if that was something to do with it. So that shook me up a little bit, and just made me take it very seriously. I actually had a test a couple of weeks back for, to see if you've had it, the blood test to see if you've had it in the past. And turns out I didn't have it, so I just had a regular old bad case of some sort of flu,
Yeah, I got tested for it with the swab up the nose.
Oh, that's rough. I know that's going to happen at some point. I'm not looking forward to it. 'Cause that looks,
dude, you're just
painful?
sitting there. It's more uncomfortable than painful. It's like the lady's like, this is going to be a bit uncomfortable. And you're like, oh, okay. And you sit there and she sticks it in and then it goes further up and you're like, whoa.
Yeah, I've seen the footage, and like when you see those those circus guys who used to tap nails into their face or whatever, you ever seen that when they like tap a nail in, they find the whatever, and it's like, how does it go that deep? You just think it's burrowing into your brain, that thing.
I thought it was going to be like when you're a kid, you try to put the spaghetti through your nose and stick it out your mouth and do the fucking connector. I was like, what if the swab just came into your mouth?
You just see it coming out of your ear or somewhere else, Like,
dude, it was definitely higher than any booger I've ever had, that's for sure. Yeah. So, but apparently, I mean, what I'm hearing is those tests aren't 100% accurate, but it said negative, so I've been feeling good, though.
That's the thing. Everyone said, well, tests aren't accurate. And I'm like, well, part of me is like, well, at least I'll be a statistic so they'll find out if they're accurate. I don't know, like, it's just the more information they have, the better, because at this point there's so much like confusion of what the hell's up or down, like.
Yeah. 100%.
And it seems like they just need the stats to sort of figure shit out, so, yeah.
Well, let's start from like the beginning. Let's go all the way back. You were born in England?
No, I actually was born in Tehran, Iran.
Oh, you were? Okay.
Yeah, I lived there for a few years. My mum's Danish, and she met my dad in England, actually. They happened to be in Iran for a few years, and I was born. And then they moved back to London, which is where they met. They moved back to London in early 70s, like right before the Iranian Revolution actually kicked in. They just happened to leave. They were just like, yeah, let's go back to London. And then things really changed back in Iran, so I'm kind of glad I didn't get stuck back there when things got weird. And grew up in London. Yeah, lived there till I was about 18, and then I started coming out to the States.
What drew you to the skateboard? Do you remember like the first time you kind of like were drawn to getting aboard and figuring it out?
Yeah, I mean, I was kind of the era where Back to the Future hit us pretty hard, That was like a really impactful thing. I was born in 74, that was like early 80s. When did that come out, like 85 or something like that? 84?
Yeah, mid-80s, late.
I was like 9 or 10 or something like that, And so when I saw it, it was a big deal for all of us. We just got over E.T. I was a BMX kid from watching E.T., and then I'll see Back to the Future, and then skating in that, and at the time, the BMX magazines I looked at also had skating in it. Started to creep in. You see them like in, vert ramp jams and stuff like that. And that fascinated me because you're looking at skateboarding, I just didn't even understand what they were doing. There's a guy doing an invert on a half pipe, and I just couldn't comprehend how he even got there, let alone where he was going afterwards, So it was a fascination to me. And I remember one key moment. We were on a little holiday in this beach town of Brighton. It's in southern England, and we're cruising along the beachfront in the car, and I look out the car window. I'm just a little kid, and we're sort of parallel with this guy on a skateboard, and he crossed the street, and back then he had a lapper on it. Old school people know what a lapper is, but you have to explain to some kid. A lapper is a piece of plastic that you would bolt onto your rear truck, and it basically it just basically meant so that you could ram into a curb and you'd ride straight up it,
Yeah.
Yeah, you didn't actually have to ollie. And I mean, it probably would have been more impressive if I'd seen an ollie, but the fact that he just cruised across the sidewalk and just like wheelied, like manualed into the curb and just like plowed through it, that just blew me away. I was like, this guy just keeps, and he kind of overtook us in traffic and kept going faster than we were in the car. And from that moment, I was like, that looks like the coolest thing to do. And that was probably before Back to the Future, actually, because I feel like I was really young when I saw that, but it really made a lasting impression. So I ran home. My brothers had skateboards, like little plastic ones from the 70s because they were older than me. And I just try and get into that, and got me hooked right away.
Do you remember what your first legitimate board was?
Yeah, I mean, okay, so my first, well, it started in pieces. I could only afford trucks and wheels, and my dad actually cut out a skateboard from plywood. It was pretty epic. It looked more like modern boards now than the 80s boards at the time, because it was complete sausage, like symmetrical, sausage. And for a kicktail, he just like stacked up some plywood and sort of like, sanded it into a wedge. So the bottom was flat and the back kicked up. It was just a wedge stuck, like almost like a tail saver, but on the top. And so I had that with some Veriflex wheels, and I can't remember, some pretty generic trucks. And then I saved up some paper route money, and I bought a Brand X Max Rayman, which was a kind of, I don't know if anyone knows, Brand X was like a weird brand in the 80s that was kind of, it was almost like a non-brand, even with the name of it. I mean, they had pro riders in England. Sean Goff rode for them and stuff, so you'd see ads in the magazine. And I just remember it was this like graphic, like it was like a yellow board with this weird black paint, splattered paint graphic of this guy. And I don't know if you ever remember a character from TV back then called Max Headroom.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he looked kind of like that, but like he had shades on and this kind of like, it just looked like a weird sketchy, and I was like, oh, it looks like that guy I see on TV, I don't know. And I remember I skated it for a couple of weeks without grip tape because I needed to save up more to afford grip tape. But I was psyched, I got it going.
Fuck. As you kind of got into it, was there like were there skate shops back at that time, or were you getting them more from like a sporting goods or what?
No, we were lucky actually. In my part of London, West London, there's a town called Ealing. There's part of Ealing called Northfields, and there was a skate shop there called Buddies. And I remember it was like, I think it was like next to a carnival shop, the joke shop that sold like costumes and like little pranks, like firecrackers and fart bombs or whatever, like stink bombs or whatever, sort of fart cushions and stuff like that. So we knew where that store was because that was like a good little kid hangout, And then next door to it popped up this skateboard shop, and that that kind of got things going. There was two older guys from the 70s, the skate scene, who kind of like got it going again in London, and so yeah, we were fortunate to have a little skate scene in our town from that.
Rad, yeah, same. Like, I bought my first board, and the guy's like, "Go up the street. There's a ditch up there. Get in there!" Like, it was like, whoa.
Dude, this just really speaks to the power of a skate shop, like a physical location, a community hub. Because, these days, I don't obviously, depending on where you live, location could mean you have to order things online and stuff, but just the industry's shifting that way so much, and I really feel bad for the skate community and how much it does, because when we travel on tours with skate teams and stuff, and you visit these stores and you see what they do and the effect they have on the local scene, like the skate park, they just generate like interest and culture that's it's really healthy, and you just can't replicate that stuff online or digitally quite as much, So.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I've been trying during this time, especially. I've been trying to like support skate shops all around the country. Like the Lottie's guy made these shirts, and I started just buying them. I'd be like, okay, who made them? And I was like, I'm gonna treat it like collectibles, and I just started getting like 1 or 2 a week and stuff. It's just like, yeah, let's give back. The skate shops are so important.
And the diehards, you know what I mean? They're the ones who were there before and during, and when the money goes, they're still hanging on until they can't,
Yeah.
They didn't show up when the money was here,
Totally.
They're the ones that, run by skaters and stuff like that. So, yeah.
Yeah, and they're always willing to take us to their local spots when we're in town and show us a good time, provide a barbecue, whatever. It's like
everything. Yeah,
yeah, it's like like you said, the online is not going to provide that.
No, I mean, think about how many experiences you've had, like when you just watching a new skate video or seeing a new mag show up on the counter of the skate shop, and you like flick through it right away, and just having that place where you can discuss stuff, whether it's spots or like, oh, this guy's style's sick, or this, like what's in, oh, that music was rad, what was that from, like it's just a breeding ground for like making things sicker,
Yeah.
Like it's more than just like retail. You're not just like selling a product, you're selling, like it's like enhancing the whole scene. I can't state it enough. Like, I love skate shops. Like, I think they're amazing. When I walk into them now, I'm still like a little kid. Like, Yeah, like you look at the stickers and the trucks, and I'm just like, God, this stuff's still so sick. I don't know, like
Totally. And I like picking their brains too. Like they're in touch with what boards are selling, why, like is FA the new craze? Like what's going on? Like, you know.
And you see that each scene is so different, you know, like they've all got their own little vibe going on and what they're into, and it's cool, it's unique, you know, like it's regional, you know, it's people got their own thing going on.
So when you got like a little more into skating and were kind of aware of things, who was some of your early influences? Like who are the dudes that locally you thought like, oh my God, these guys are rad, or, you know, put up on a pedestal of kind of inspiration?
I mean, like I said, we had a good little local scene, and you know, some of the guys that I skate with, like in my neighborhood, started getting like, you know, flowed products and in magazines. One guy, Johnny Wilson, was like really sick, and there's actually I always joke about this because people trip, but that guy JK from Jamiroquai, he used to skate with us, and that, you know, he used to be at that skate shop, and he was a pretty good skater at the time. So they were kind of like our immediate like peers. And then once you started discovering like skating beyond our like zip code, as you'd say, or postcode in England, and all over London, there was skaters like Curtis McCann. He was phenomenally ahead of his time and super influential on all of us back then. He rode for the skate shop M Zone that I eventually got sponsored by, which was a huge deal for me, and it kind of like led to a lot of other things. So he was like, it was a big deal. He was like our age group, but like light years ahead in his skating, in his style, just in his like mindset and his personality. Just a really like inspiring dude, you know. He rode for Underworld Element back in the day when Element skateboards used to be Underworld Element. Andy Howell and those guys, just like
Julian, I think, right?
Julian was on the team. He had a couple of clips in Skypager, the video back then, so that was a big deal for us. Local guy comes big, you know. He had a sick graphic that was like this really like kind of quite a political piece about like, you know, racism and like how African culture had been like pillaged throughout the years. Like it was this really progressive dude. Like everything about him was like light years ahead. I can't speak about him enough. He's one of those, but he kind of disappeared off the scene pretty rapidly at a certain point. So it's one of those things where if you weren't there to sort of feel the fire, it's hard to explain it. It doesn't convey now, you know.
Oh, okay. Is he? What's he doing now? No one knows.
He's still around, you know, people still see him around London and stuff, but I think he got a little bit disillusioned with the whole skate scene. Like it all happened really rapidly for him. When I was young, I rode for Powell, and I got him on the team, and then he ended up getting on Underworld Element, and then he came out to the States early. He was like one of the first UK dudes to come out to the States before like Flip Guys and all that stuff. And I heard he smashed it at some contest, and then the story goes he broke his femur at Wallenberg, which is pretty bad and fucked him up pretty good. And then I think as well he kind of saw the ins and outs of the skate scene, like the more politics of just like how things worked. And I think he was like, whoa, this isn't what I thought it was, and came back and just threw in the towel and all that and started going to school and focused. I think he studied like African studies or something like that. And he's just switched lanes. So yeah.
Was he skated? Was that around the same time like Simon Evans?
Yeah, that was another name I was about to bring up. Amazingly progressive street skater that you probably saw in San Francisco when he moved out there, huh? Yeah,
and his mythos is like heavy. Like people from England always talk about. I'm not saying they shouldn't, but like it was always like Simon Evans. Like he was the guy. Everything I pretty much said about Curtis just applies to him as well. You know, like he was like 2 steps ahead of everyone, doing his own thing. Like it was always like, whoa, you're doing like. Remember when huge pants and small wheels were kind of the rage? Yeah. He was like three steps ahead of us all in all that stuff, and the tricks he did were very innovative, and just his outlook again, like, you know, it was the whole package, you know, and that's what made these guys really special. They didn't just like come with a little bit of trick. It was like their style, their clothes, their attitude, what they spoke about in their interviews in the magazines. They were all, you know, really, really amazing dudes. And another guy, they were street skaters. Another guy I skated with a lot back then was a guy called Jason Lunn. He was also on the M Zone shop team. He did a lot for me in my career and got me, you know, like hooked up and made sure I got to in front of the right people at contests and stuff, because I was just a little kid. I didn't know what the hell was going on, you know. And
and he pushed me hard to try to skate harder. You know, he was super talented and kind of an asshole about it, but in a good way, like a big brother, you know, who'd always, like a skating version of a noogie, like get you in a head, you know, like you got to do 2 more tricks today before I give you a ride home, that kind of thing. And you're like, really? You know, like, oh, you did a crawl side, now you got to do it to Reva, otherwise we're not going. You have to walk home. I'm like, what? You know, like that kind of guy. You know.
Oh, sick.
But it's always for the good, and yeah, to this day I still talk to that guys. All these guys, they're just, I don't know. I feel lucky that I had like really pretty unique people to be inspired by in that London scene back then. I mean, there's loads more. Aaron Bleasdale, he's another one that back then was, you know, like they just had like, and it sounds lame to say, but they had what we looked at as like what the Americans were doing. These guys had, you know, because there was a delay. You'd always get like magazines a little later, videos a little later, and we felt like we were always trying to catch up.
Right.
But then suddenly there was these dudes among us who were like, no, these guys don't need to, like, we're following them as much as we're following the US guys, you know, like they were inventing stuff like on the same level or keeping up, you know. And
sure.
They also, all these guys I mentioned, all made the trips to the States, you know, like had US sponsors and stuff, so that seemed to legitimize them a little bit more for us back then, because, you know, it's not like now where Europe has, you know, magazines, companies, and a full industry of its own. You know, everything was reliant on what was happening in California back then. So for these guys to have that kind of legitimate backing from US brands was huge. You know, it made a big deal for us back then.
Okay, so was that shop? What was it? M Zone? Is that your first sponsor?
First real sponsor. Before that, when I was hanging out at that Buddy's skate shop, I got a clothing sponsor called Krakatoa. These guys, they sponsored a few skaters around the UK. They ran a couple of ads in the mags, and their clothes were pretty awful, even by 80s standards. You know how 80s had like a lot of skulls and patterns and gear, you know, like pretty loud. Yeah. They were like that and then some, you know, and I remember the very first photo I had in a magazine was this tiny little, like, you know, it wasn't even quarter page, it was like a tiny little inset photo, and it just said Mike from Krakatoa. And I think a lot of people asked me, like, hey, are you from Krakatoa? Like, they thought I was actually from the
it's like a city? Oh, there's an island?
Well, there's a, Krakatoa is the volcano. There's a and I think it's an island of Krakatoa, or either way, there's a volcano, I believe it's an island. I should probably know my geography by now, but anyway, yeah, people thought I was actually from a place called Krakatoa, and it was like, no, that's actually my clothing sponsor for about like a month.
What mag was that?
That would have been Read and Destroy. Yeah. Oh, maybe it was BMX Action Bike, because it was a BMX magazine that transitioned into being a skate magazine as like just things shifted over time. That was the one I said you'd see, like, you know, vert skating in the BMX mag, and it was like, oh, okay, it's coming back.
Yeah. Were you aware of like Jeff Rowley and Tom Penny back then, or when did they come into your radar?
They were like a few years after this generation, just a couple, you know what I mean? But I remember when those guys showed up, they were tiny, like tiny little boys, you know, like 11, 12-year-old. I mean, I think they were maybe small for that age, you know. Jeff's not a giant dude, you know, and yeah, neither's Tom, you know. They're kind of like, they're not built like big guys, you know, and so at that age, they looked especially young, and that combined with their skating level was just kind of like a real head turner. You're like, who the hell are these guys? You know, like when they showed up, it was quite a game changer for the UK. You know, like they were the new breed kind of thing.
Sure, yeah. Sound and Vision video, was that one of the early ones for you?
That was the second skate video I guess I'd made. That was the first fully independent video. The one before that was kind of a fun project that worked out because I went to an art college, and 2 skater friends of mine went to the same college, Matt Fowler and Mark Channer. Mark Channer had access to the media studies. He did media studies, so he had access to an edit suite. And Matt was a year ahead of me, doing the same as me, like fine art and graphic design. And for his project, he was doing like a branding for a skate company. And so we thought it'd be fun to make a little skate video for his project. And so we filmed each other as we were like a fake skate team and made a little video out of that. And New Deal UK, the distributors, they saw it and they're like, oh, make us some copies, we'll sell it. And so we sold that around the UK, maybe like a handful of copies, like 10 copies. But that got me sparked on the idea of being able to film and edit stuff, just having access to that edit suite. The guy was really stoked because the dude who ran the suite never had anyone really use it as much as they could have or should have. So even though I wasn't supposed to be in there, he just liked my enthusiasm and let me use it whenever I wanted. So
was that tape to tape?
Yeah, VHS to VHS, but it was a pretty legit setup where you could, cue the sync points and it would like pre-roll, so you weren't like hitting play and pause at the same time.
Right, that's how we did Damaged.
With one of those decks.
Zawanich had some rental unit up by Fort Miley. Some dude had it with exactly what you're saying. But once you laid it down, there was no going back.
Yeah. You work from beginning to end. So if you want to, this one you could do some drop edits, but it was difficult, especially if you wanted to try and time anything nicely, But that's a good way of learning if you've done it back then. It's like a nice discipline. You really appreciate the freedom of computers now.
Oh man. That. Yeah. Okay, I've never been to England, unbelievably.
No?
That
shocks me.
Yeah,
oh my goodness.
It's a weird one. I don't know why, but what are some of the top places for skating? Like South Bank, I hear, right?
South Bank's legendary because of its just its history, I guess you'd say, and the fact that it wasn't made for skateboarding and it's so good for skateboarding, So that place has a lot going for it. London's great in that it has a lot of history. There's a handful of relic old concrete skate parks that are still around. Romford, Harrow. They're the main big ones with a bunch of bowls and weird half pipes and things like that I'm sure you've seen in all kinds of videos and magazines. And
is that one that there's no flat bottom? I think Mike Frazier was doing a front blunt in it. Is that in England?
That's Harrow Skate Park, and that was actually the first skate park I ever went to as a kid. Me and my buddy, we bunked off of school one day and we heard about it through the BMX or skate mags, back then, and just took a couple of buses and just found it, it was weird. Back then you had no real information,
Yeah, same here.
There was a UK, I think you guys had Thomas Guides out here as a book map. And back there we have a A to Z, which is like a little pocket map where you can have A to Z of all the streets. And so we kind of used that and just figured out where it was. And those places were crazy. The very first time I went to Harrow Halfpipe, there's a skater called Matt Baines, UK skater, vert skater. Matt Baines did a fully stretched gymnast plant in the Harrow Halfpipe, right where Mike Frazier's front blunt was. That was one of the first things I seen. I got to the skate park, there was almost no one there. And me and my buddy were cruising around, just wobbling around on transitions, didn't know what the hell we're doing. And this dude shows up, drops in on the half pipe, didn't roll in from the side like everybody else, dropped perched up on that 2-inch deck, drops in, I think axle stall and just straight into a stretched gymnast, man. That wasn't the first trick he did, but that was pretty much the session, I was just what the, I said, I was just getting my head around even what skateboarding was, and that sort of stuff just blew my mind. Absolutely blew my mind.
Do you still go to the loo or do you go to the bathroom? What are some of these English things that you've carried on with you? English words, bullocks maybe. Toad said dribs and drabs, you say a lot.
Dribs and drabs, maybe. I'll throw that out. I guess that's an English thing. Bits and bobs. Just little things I'll have a bit of that. I don't know. Do you guys say I'll have a bit of that? I don't know.
Maybe
not so much.
Not so much.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't pick up on it. I find myself more noticing when I have to translate to what I call American English, because I remember from the day I got here, if I asked for a glass of water, as a waitress or anyone, can I get a water with that? I'd literally get a blank stare, And you'd think water and water are not that, they're close enough. Or, tomato, the same thing, It's the worst is through a drive-through because you have that extra, layer of the audio. But yeah, you'd be surprised. You have to sort of translate certain things just to get by, you can explain what water is a few times, but after a while you're just like, all right, it's just water then, I guess, when in Rome, right? You got to speak the language.
Yeah, it's like the lift.
Yeah, and I've had UK friends come out and stay, and it's almost like they dig their heels in and try and be even more British than they even were, or really thicken up the accent just because they don't want to bend or don't want they don't want to give in and say something in an American way. But at some point you just got to get on with your day, man. You just
Well, is there a little bit of the thing the name of our country is England. Obviously, English is our fucking language.
Oh, there's a huge amount of pride to that, and if if an English person gets corrected by an American person, or, the language is even questioned, straight away it's like, well, we bloody invented that shit, and I get it,
Yeah.
I back that 100%, but at the same time, it's sometimes you're just in a Denny's in Arizona and you just want to get your glass of water with your food and get on with life, You're not trying to make it change the world, you just want to get on with the day, so.
Oh, man.
And, I'm sure, I know my English friends think my accent's changed over the years because I've been here so long. And it sort of drifts up and down. But the more I think about it, I start, maybe sounding a bit more English and...
Sure. I mean, you acclimate to your surroundings. My friend of mine moved to Australia to go to college, and he came back after 3 or 4 years, and he had an Australian accent. I was like, dude, you're not from, what the fuck?
Yeah, Australian's quite contagious. I could see that. That accent's, it's because it's a bit fun, I think that's when accents you start picking them up is because they sound fun.
Yeah.
Maybe more interesting.
So, did you get on PAL when you were still in England? Yeah,
that was my first big sponsor, I guess you'd say. I was at a contest in Birmingham, and this guy called Frank Messman, who was running the PAL Europe setup over there, he's a Danish vert skater / freestyle skater, which is an interesting combination. He used to literally enter a vert contest and then be in the freestyle contest 10 minutes later afterwards.
Wow.
Really nice dude, a little bit older generation than me from the Europe scene, and he was, I guess, kind of putting together a team at the time, and they started that Euro Brigade, I guess you'd call it, and put a bunch of us on the team, and that was kind of a big deal. Got to start traveling, end up in a couple of the videos, got on some PAL tours, which was really trippy, going on tour with the people that I used to look at in videos just a minute before, so.
Sure.
Yeah, it was
did that bring you to the US for the first time?
No, I came out after PAL. I started riding for Santa Cruz through my friend Aaron Bleasdale. He's a London skater, as mentioned before. He was riding for Santa Cruz at the time, and things were going progressing a little bit with those guys. They were kind of considering turning someone pro in Europe, according to the European team manager. And this is a whole funny story I don't want to get into, but he was really pushing to set me up to turn pro. This guy Shane O'Brien, nice guy, and he was running the European team, and I felt like he was really trying to nudge me in that direction, all right, you got to do this, you got to do that, win these contests, get coverage. I'm just all right, whatever,
Yeah.
And I actually just quit PAL because the whole traveling with pros and being in that spotlight tripped me out. I wrote a letter to Frank Messman and was like, thanks, man, but I really appreciate all these opportunities, but I can't do this. This is nuts. I don't think this is for me. And so my friend Aaron was like, oh, well, Santa Cruz can just flow you boards. You don't have to do anything. And I was like, well, that sounds mad.
Yeah, that's more my speed.
Yeah. I don't know. I just didn't want to be skating in front of people at demos and things. It scared the shit out of me. And but then next thing I know, I'm riding for Santa Cruz, and the team manager's sending me to contests and trying to get me filming and all that kind of. Next thing I was back in the game again, and it was cool. I was having fun, but it was just whoa. They did this weird setup where they put me kind of almost against this other skater from Europe, Dirk Winkelman from Holland, this is how Shane explained it to me. He was like, they're going to pay you guys a little bit of money for a year, and they never paid amateurs back then. It was just a couple of $100, and they're like, after a year, whichever one does better, they're going to turn pro. And I was like, really? All right, whatever, you know. And almost a year after that, I was coming to the States. I was just traveling just to come skating, and Shane was like, you got to ask those guys at Santa Cruz. And like, I put it off the whole trip until I was like back, you know, like the last day, and he's like, you got to talk to them, you know, you're there, like, have a meeting. And I was like, fuck, I don't want to do this, man. It like scared the shit out of me. So I ended up in a room with Kendall and Bob the Knight, a couple of NHS heads, you know, and I'm just like looking at my toes, like, it's a shame, murmuring, you know, like I can't even get the words out. I'm just like, something about a pro board, I don't know. And like, they were just like, I don't know what they'd heard or they were just like, no, that's not happening, you know, like, you're tripping, like, where did this come from, kind of thing. And I was just like, never mind, sorry, bye-bye, you know, like, so I left, and then, yeah, I don't know, just things got really weird with me, and just the whole thing got weird, so I just, yeah, left that, and ended up writing for ATM Click after that, so.
Okay. Who were some of the early dudes in the PAL that you were awestruck by? Like, who were you traveling with that you're like, holy shit, that's Tommy Guerrero or whoever it was?
I mean, I wish Tommy was on one of the tours. That would have been tight. Yeah, huge fan of Tommy Guerrero, man. I watched the Future Primitive part of his, like, the intro. Jesus, I watched that on loop over and over. But, yeah, seriously. I was Tony Hawk, which is, you know... Oh. Lance Mountain, Ray Underhill, Eric Sanderson. That was the first tour around the UK. Fuck. And then, you know, after that, for the next couple of years, there was trips with, like, you know, all the guys, Cab, everyone was out for, like, Europe trips and stuff like that. So, but the very first tour was Tony, Lance, Ray Underhill, and Eric Sanderson. And
that was before Rudy and Guy then, right?
I get my dates. I want to say those guys might have got on. That would have been, because the first video I was in was Propaganda, and so those guys were in band This, right. So they were fresh on the scene, you know. So that was the era. That was like 91, 92. I don't know. I should have done my research.
Were you there for a while or not that long?
A couple of years, yeah. You know, I did a couple of summers with them, like, you know, UK tours, a couple of Europe summers. Yeah, I mean.
Did you work at all with Stacy?
No, they sent cameras over to Europe, and Frank would film, or we'd film each other and stuff like that. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sick. So how old were you when you like crossed the pond, as they say, moved to the U.S.?
I was around 94. I started coming out, so I was, you know, it was around 93, 94 I started like coming and staying for longer and longer. Yeah, so I was, 18, 19, 28.
And did you move straight to Santa Rosa, or where did you?
No, first stop was I would stay in Encinitas with Mario Rubalcaba, because that was through ATM Click. And so that was a rad house. Like, he lived with a couple of rad dudes. This guy, Scott Bartoloni, he was in the band Klickitat Ikatoe that Mario was in, and so I'd go see their shows a lot. And then Tony Cox and Chip Van Ham, they all lived in that house too. We just got those guys on the team, so it was kind of like we made the first ATM video in those few months that I came out here, and just that was like a little Encinitas-based vibe. And then lived in San Clemente when I kind of started like getting my own place first, because that was where ATM was based, and I was also like running the brand, as you know, like doing the graphics, the team, the videos, like kind of just doing all the in-house stuff as well as writing for them, because that was kind of the deal. Like, no one else was going to do it, and they were basically like, if you want to ride for us, you can have the whole deal. And so I got handed that one. That's an interesting story, actually, how that went down. That was a weird bait and switch. So I'd been out here skating around the year before, and I was in LA. I'd staying with Lance Mountain because I'd met him on the tours, and those guys were kind enough to let me stay with them. And while skating around LA with Lance, we skated streets a lot with a couple of times with Ron Chapman. And after this NHS thing kind of went a bit weird, and I came back from that trip where they were like, yeah, you're not turning pro. I was like, I don't know, I'm just going to do something different. So the Tom Boyle and Jason Corbett saw me in Europe, and they were like, hey, you should call up this number and get these guys to send you boards. They rode for New School, and I was like, what is New School? I didn't even know what that company was at the time. So the connection was go to this distributor, pick up some boards. So I go down to this distributor called Surrey Skates in the UK, like this old skate shop that's been there forever. And when I go to see the boards, I see all these ATM boards next to it, and I'm like, whoa, what are these? You know, like, and they basically explained, like, yeah, they come from the same place. SOP Distribution does New School and ATM. It's like sister brands. And I see Ron's board and Gonz boards, and I'm just like, well, I want to ride for ATM. I don't want to ride for New School. I don't even know what New School is, you know? So I think I even called them up right there in the store or whatever, but like I called up and I talked to the guy. It was Ned Haddon who was like running the team stuff or whatever, and I was like, hey, and I was hanging out with Ron, and I like these ATM boards, and Ron happened to be there. So he passed the phone over, talked to Chapman for a second. I'm like, man, these boards are way sick. Any chance I could get flowed some of these, whatever? And he's like, yeah, I'll talk to Mark and see what's up, you know. A week later, Ned calls me up. He's like, you're on ATM. I'm like, no freaking way. I lost my shit. Like, I was like, I'm riding for the same team as Mark Gonzalez. Like, literally, like, blew my mind. You know what I mean? Like, this was just pinnacle stuff. And then I didn't realize, but in that week was when Mark and everyone just left the whole brand. Pretty much, it was like, I think a week or two time difference between the first call with Ron, and then they were like, yeah, you're on, but I was on a different team. It was a whole like reinvention of the brand. And so then they were like, yeah, we want you to come out to the States, meet everyone, and like, it just like turned into something way different. It was cool in its own way, but it just felt like a bit of a bait and switch, you know what I mean? And whatever, I've got no regrets. I had a great time out of it. I met Mario and all the ATM dudes and all the opportunities that came out of that. Like,
Sure.
that guy, John Fallahy, who ran that whole operation, he's an interesting character, but I owe him a lot, you know? Like, he gave me a huge foot in the door. Like, good friend. I've been meaning to actually go by and see him and say what up and thank you again, because, you know, that was like a big break for me, getting to come out to the States and literally getting handed a brand to run, and we got to do whatever graphics we wanted, do whatever video we wanted. Like, we got to mess around. It was fun. Like, so
it's interesting to look back on times when you felt one way, and now you look back with your wisdom and say, that might have rubbed me wrong or whatever, but it was so instrumental in like what I got going.
Totally. I mean, I was only tripping on the Gonz thing for a second. I was still like, wow, this is a cool thing, you know? Like, I liked all the dudes that were involved in it once I got to know them, but there was like, the only dude I really knew was Mario, because he was already like a known skater. The rest of the team was pretty much unknown. It was like Jeff King, Kip Sumter, you know, like dudes that weren't like big names by any means, but they were ripping skaters and cool dudes. So it was cool to get involved in that, and yeah.
What was your mindset going from England, which is kind of like overcast and dreary most of the time, to San Clemente, like one of the nicest places, almost Hawaii down there?
So yeah, I mean, San Clemente, it did feel like a permanent vacation, you know? It's a funny town because you've got this odd mix of, you know, sort of older conservative people, you know, and then you've got the sort of surf element, sort of more really like bro vibe kind of thing, which I was surprised it isn't quite as laid back as you'd think, you know. It's a little bit more macho than I thought, you know, you think from afar until you're in the mix of it. And then you've got like the Camp Pendleton military scene, which is right on the border right there. So it's an interesting cocktail of people, but it's a cool town, and, you know, fun stuff to skate there. And like I said, it was just a interesting foot in the door to all of this.
Interesting, yeah. That's where Sheckler's from, right? San Clemente?
Yeah, born and raised.
Wow. So then what drew you to the world-famous Santa Rosa?
Well, Santa Rosa was a kind of interesting connection, because through the New School ATM thing, we had John Miner on the team on New School at the time. Oh. And he was really ripping skater back then. I mean, still is, but back then he was on fire. And he connected us with Gabeman, who sent us the Sponsor Me video, and we straight away put him on ATM. And I remember I'd take a Greyhound bus, I'd fly to SF and then take the bus up to Santa Rosa. I remember getting off the bus and seeing Brian and John walking around the corner to meet me, and like, I don't know. They just looked like almost like a cartoon character. They were like a pair. You know what I mean? Like they were kind of meant to be together, kind of thing. And they were like really tight bros, and it was interesting little scene because back then you had Hansi Driscoll, Joel Price, a whole bunch of Nanda Zip. A whole bunch of ripping skaters in that town. All like killing it, sponsored by good sponsors and doing good things. And Sean Dolinsky lived there, so we had a photographer close by, which was pretty rare. Miner was already filming, so it was an active scene. And obviously the skate park was a huge draw because that was like the first concrete skate park in California, I think, since Derby almost. I think it was a long gap.
It's an old one.
Yeah, it was like one of the first ones before the whole wave of concrete came back. So yeah, it was a good connection, good scene, and there was very hospitable crew. Everyone up there welcomed me in, and I'd stay there every month for a weekend or so at least, and then ended up after the ATM thing kind of went south. I just ended up moving up there for a year or so and getting my place. So.
And is that right around Adrenaline?
Yeah, exactly. So after ATM, I was already spending a lot of time in Northern California, been skating with Chris a bunch because I met Chris and Jaya in Europe on some trips, and we traveled a bunch. And so when I came out to Northern California, I'd go and stay with them a little bit, and got to know Hansi and Strubing and those guys, and it was quite a natural shift to go from ATM to skating with those guys.
Yeah, that team, I mean, there's a few in the history of skateboarding, obviously, but that team seemed super like what you think about when you're a skater is you're like, if we have a team, I want everyone to get in the van and the whole team check off on this guy before we put him on. And that team exemplified that. Like, everybody loved everybody. There was no like, oh, is this guy coming? Fuck that guy or whatever.
no, absolute family vibe. And those guys welcomed me in so, I felt so welcome as just like brothers, you know what I mean? And right around the time I was getting involved, Toad got on the team, and they're all family. Like, these guys are, to this day, like, the people are considered brothers. Like, my couch is their couch. Actually, that's funny. When I stayed in SF at Jaya and Hansi and Strubing's house, I'd stay on the couch so much I didn't like the couch. It sucked, so I ended up bringing my own couch and swapping it out. And they didn't seem to mind. I think mine was a little more comfortable to sit on as well as to sleep on. But
nice.
Yeah, no, it was definitely a family affair, and even when I lived in that house, Jaya's sister was living there as well, so it really did feel like a family. And yeah, I don't know, I got so much to thank those guys for, because again, like, it was, those are the things that made a big difference back then. I was just a kid floating around from the UK. I didn't know what was going on, and so it gave me a good anchor, and truly inspiring people to be skating with, like, really push your skateboarding. Wow.
Hey, let's take a quick break and hear from some of our friends.
Hey, it's Corey at Blue Plate, 3218 Mission Street. Come see us. Meatloaf, fried chicken, deviled eggs, Dollar Olympia beers. We're here every day of the week. We got a garden, and we got smiles on our faces. Come let us make you happy.
And now, another first impression with Timothy Donald Mckenney.
First impressions of I am a cinematographer. Mike Manzoori is Tampa. And it's back in the day when the Adrenaline and Think teams would get together and go there together. So I'm not only there with the legends of Think, but I'm there with like guys like Sergi Ventura and shit like that. But I'm there with the Adrenaline guys too, where I can just go in the room and sit down and watch Chris Senn draw some Greek god. Because I remember the two things I do remember about this trip, and don't knock it out. I'm sure. I don't know if Toad was there, but I know Jaya was there because I remember seeing him walk around outside. I'm sure Strubin was there because he was the Ripper, the young killer. I'm sure Hansi Driscoll was there doing his not even above coping switch kick flips to just whatever. But I know for a fact that Chris Senn was killing that art in the book because I sat right next to him in their room at Tampa. And on top of that, the other thing I do remember is Manzoori getting on his board. I've never seen him skate before, and he's flying stale fishes out of the quarter pipe. He's got the smoothest lines, and he almost doesn't look like he cares. He's one of those guys like Reve. I just don't care. I'm just ripping. But I remember the one thing I do remember is 5-foot-high stale fishes, eyes closed, front side, no problem. I remember his glasses, and I also remember his cool accent. He reminded me of almost like a beetle. He talked like a goddamn beetle. It was so sick. Anyways, all love. I love all you guys. Always stay up, fellas.
Let's talk a little bit about Jaya. Like, you got some cool stories. He was such an incredible dude. And actually, I was just in Hawaii last year, and I kicked it a whole day with his sister, and we got to kind of reminisce a little bit. Fuck, I mean, Jaya's so missed, obviously, but you got to spend a lot of time. See, the dude was an amazing skateboarder, obviously, but some people might not know he was pretty amazing photographer as well. He was just kind of like one of those dudes that's really good at whatever he decided to do.
Definitely, yeah. No, Jaya was a huge inspiring influence on me. I mean, just the way he conducted himself, you know, what it was on and off the board, like the way he skated was, you know, hard as nails. He ripped, you know, fast, and just did the tricks to what you wanted to see, the way you want to do it, and did some wild stuff too. Like a lot of those like rail things he would do and stuff like that was trippy, you know. But yeah, I mean, I remember being hyped on Jaya from back in the NHS days. I remember when he first started getting ads on Santa Cruz and stuff. I was like, who the hell is Jaya Bondurov? Like, and the footage you see of him was just badass, you know, like right out of the gate, you know. So I think it was maybe Big Pants, Small Wheels, that old Santa Cruz video. He had some sick stuff in. So I was already like pretty hyped just to be around a dude that I was like seen from afar. And then just when you know, live with someone and travel with someone and just see how they conduct themselves and react to situations and stuff like that. He was always like just rock solid, you know. And yeah, he had a pretty interesting life story, you know, that, you know, very personal and very deep, and just I think a lot of that stuff maybe even affected him, and just kind of, it's the sort of stuff that could have affected people in a more detrimental way, but it seemed to make him stronger, or make he took hard things and made them into a better situation. You know, I don't know, like he learned from life, and he was always somebody who would do the right thing, you know, like he would stand up for you if things got weird. Like, you know, he would be the one you would want on your right hand side. I mean, he could definitely like take someone down if he needed to, but he was like the gentle dude, you know, like, and just I don't know, just always seemed to be like saying and doing the right thing. So it was kind of like nice to sort of see that as like a little bit of a role model as you're like growing up, you know. Because I was a bit of a spaz, you know. I was a little bit like all over the place, and he seemed really in control. I think that's what it was like. And you know, you talk about his photography. Wow, like that really exemplifies that. Is like everything kind of came together visually in his photography because you could see so much control. I mean, I remember back then he was using a lot of gear that was a little bit like ahead of what a lot of other photographers, or just like as far ahead as
like
other
the medium
photographers
format, Hasselblads.
And the flashes and stuff. And I remember sometimes skaters would be a little agitated how long he'd take to set up, but like he was just really dialing it in. And when he shot the photos, they were on point, you know, they were flawless and clearly like, you know, technically like above the average skate photographer, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I don't know, I just thought it was just exemplified like his like, all right, I'm just gonna take my time, I'm gonna do this really well, and it's gonna be fucking badass. You know, and that's kind of like, that's what he did, you know. That's
you know, that ledge, I think I don't know what street it's on. I believe it's like Washington or something, but it's in front of a house on a hill, and there's a driveway bump, and he nose slid it. It's like a green, like maybe waist high ledge, but it's on
super long.
Yeah, steep hill, and you have to clear like grate in the cement. It's like rough.
Yeah,
that shit today is so gnarly. Like I drive people by it all the time. I'm like, this Jaya knows this, like I forget 95 or I don't know. Yeah. But it's like, dude, today people like, it's so gnarly.
Yeah,
it's like the Jaya ledge.
I mean, I was just skimming through drives, and I came across the clip of him sessioning the Golden Gate Bridge before that, I think they put fence up. Now you can't really do it, but there's a section. Basically, there's the whole separation between the sidewalk and where the cars drive was like a metal ledge, and then there was a flat bar that came up at like a 35-40 degree angle out of it, and he did like a 50-50 on the ledge to slappy 50-50 up the pole jam thing.
Yeah.
And it was, it's a hairball spot. You can't be skating on there for long. They come kick you out and stuff like that. And I remember his board was falling into traffic. It was gnarly, and yeah, he's just a badass dude that just like, I don't know, it was just some sick footage. I'm gonna send you that actually. I'm gonna go off just seeing him trying it and going for it, and just like, all right, I don't know. I just remember it being like really intense. It's like super windy up there too, and you're rushing in, rushing out. I don't know. It was fun. Yeah.
Were you on that US tour with Adrenaline that they did with Think? Like it was like Adrenaline and Think together?
No, I wish. I never got to go on those Think tours, unfortunately.
Okay, yeah. That look. I think Mark Whiteley went on that one, but I didn't get to go on that one. It was like, it looked pretty sick. So much talent.
I'll bet, yeah.
What about China Banks? You filmed Matt O'Brien, Nollie Tailslide?
I did, yeah, and I've got to find that footage somewhere.
Yeah.
It's somewhere. I mean, I never throw anything away. It's in this room I'm sitting in, but I'm not that organized at the moment. So
you only have a few tapes, right?
Yeah, only a few hundred. Yeah, Matt O'Brien, my goodness, that dude's so talented. He was actually on that same drive that I was just looking at. He was skating those Jersey barriers down by the waterfront. Remember those? They were there for a while.
Yeah, and it had like a corner kind of.
Yeah, it was kind of almost bowled out little thing, and in the footage he's tagging up the Jersey barriers with his angel wings that were the Slap logo for a long time. Remember those angel wings he would do? Yeah, it's funny, I was mentioning it to someone, they were like, I didn't realize that was Matt O'Brien, but he was ripping. Good skate. That Nollie Tailslide to this day, like, that's timeless good, that stuff's never going to get easier.
No. Yeah, I'm trying to put together like a thing about China Banks, and I've been researching like photos, video, everything, trying to like, man, archival stuff when you do like a documentary or something, that's like, it's one of the hardest things, like to find the footage, and like you feel like a lot of pressure to make, you forgot Upson's kickflip, like something like that. You're like, you open Pandora's box to like, because you can't include every fucking thing that's happened, and everybody has, their opinion. But
sure,
yeah, it's been really cool so far.
I got some footage for you. I got some really good Jerry Gurney stuff there.
Oh right, yeah, I was with you on the one where he crail slid over a bench, maybe.
He did like boneless over a bench,
backside boneless,
back 360, or no, front boneless and back 360, and he did all kinds of stuff. Yeah,
right, yeah. Okay, hell yeah. Have you ever done a hand plant on vert?
I mean, technically yes, but nothing to write home about. They're pretty sorry looking hand plants.
Hand on coping?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I used to skateboard all the time, bro.
No, I know you have. Have you ever tried to spin a 540?
Yeah, I could do 540s, backside grab ones.
You've done them?
Yeah.
Rad.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I was like, you think Manzoori?
I never had them on lock. Like, it was like a handful of sessions where things went well, and then a handful where they didn't go so well.
and you would do it backside air grab?
Yeah.
Okay.
Funny story about that.
That's legit.
It was fun. It was scary. One of the gnarliest things I think I've ever done for sure. I'm proud of that one. But I remember at the time I was learning them, and Ali Cairns, fellow vert skater from the UK, he was learning them, and once he got them, he had them on lock, and he grabbed them every which way, indie, tail grab, whatever way, mute, whatever, he could do them all day. And I remember we were skating the Northampton vert ramp one evening, and Sean Goff was there, and Sean's like the guy we looked up to as kids, and he was the dude who first ever tossed a McTwist in England. I want to say he was the first dude who could make them in the UK, and he was joining in the session, so we're all spinning around. At the time he had a buddy there filming, and I was like, I made one, and I was like, did you get it? And he's like, nah, I didn't film it. And he told me he didn't film it. And then years later, we're doing the Manic Marty video. I'm helping Fred out with that. And we're getting like old Tom Petty footage. And I think that's how it happened. Basically, I end up getting this footage tape, and I see my 540 on the same tape with Sean, that same session. I'm like, motherfucker, you guys did film it. So
did he not know that he filmed it, or did he know and just not want to tell you?
I'm pretty sure he was just doing it to fuck with me. You know, and I don't know how long he was going to hold out for, but yeah, I found it later. I've got it on a VHS somewhere, but yeah, other than that, I've only ever got like slams of it on like someone actually trying to film me, you know, like specifically. But yeah, that trick kicked my ass. I only made a few of them.
Have you taken some heavy slams trying it?
Just that, you know, when you get like the elbow that looks like there's a whole Pro Design pad, the whole PD elbow pad underneath your skin, you know, like that size. You're just like, yeah, that's not good.
God damn. Have you ever got knocked out? Any concussions?
Too many to count, mate.
Really?
My memory is so shot from it. Like, one of the worst ones, I think, if you dig out there, if anyone would feel that, there's Adrenaline Industry section that was in 4-on-1, which we actually got played twice because the first time they forgot to put the audio for the music on, so they put it again the next issue. Anyway, but there's a clip of that, and I think it's Theo Hands holding my head, and you know Lincoln School in SF, there's out front of it, there's like a ledge out that drops down, so it's like a flat ledge and then it drops into sort of like a Hubba style curb. And I tried to drop grind, went wrong, flipped over, hit my head on the curb, and it poured out blood and knocked myself out cold for a while there. And I remember that was particularly scary because I needed a few stitches and I didn't have insurance, and I went to a few hospitals and I kept getting turned away and ended up just going back and buzzed it, and Hansi butterflied it for me. And yeah, I've hit my head too many times. It's not cool.
Fuck.
Yeah.
That's a bummer.
Yeah, I definitely feel it's affected my memory or some of my judgment. And you know what else as well is like my wife would notice that I would be like really sensitive to my headspace. Like, you know, when you get close and she'd put her hand into my hair or like touch my head, I'd like flinch or whatever. And she always thought that was weird. Oh, you know, that was, you know, obviously it's unusual. You know, normally someone stroking your hair is nice. And so, but I was always like a little bit overly aware of my peripheral headspace. And a few years ago, we were walking in our neighborhood. We actually got hit by a car, both of us, and she hit her head pretty bad. We're both fine out of it, but after she hit her head pretty bad, she had the same sort of thing where it's almost like there's like a radius around your head where like 6 inches or a foot away, anything coming in that space, you feel extra like vulnerable and like nervous or twitchy, or just like it just feels like not cool, you know? Right. And she was like, oh, I get it now. Like, it's because you hit your head so many times, you don't want nothing coming near it, you know? So
yeah, it's like your protective instinct.
Yeah. Gotta protect that dome.
We're going to go to Instagram. I've given a little question for you from the Instagram army here. His name is XRoboClawX, and he asked Davros or Dawn Breeder.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, but that's two legendary UK skaters. Like, yeah, when I was a little kid, they were like OG skaters who were quite characters. I mean, Davros or Dawn Breeder. Wow. I don't know, man. I'm stumped on that one. I'd say Dawn Breeder. Okay. Yeah, Dawn Breeder, because he actually rode for that Brand X company that I was talking about. So I think he might have had a little bit of a hand in me buying that board for the first board I ever bought. So yeah, probably Dawn Breeder. He was probably even riding the board that I bought, actually, now that I think about it.
Let's transition into camera life a little bit.
Sure.
What's like early memories of your first camera, getting into it more than just documenting, like somebody passing you a camera to like document something, where you actually were like thinking about an artistic approach, or this is going to be part of a video or that kind of thing?
It first started with that Sound and Vision video you mentioned. That was like the first one where I was like, I'm going to do a video. You know, we'd played around with that video before for my friend's project. It was called Jello, and that was just like, kind of like, all right, yeah, let's see how this works. And once we knew how it worked, and you had the ability to marry like like visual with sound, like that, I fell in love with that. I remember as a little kid seeing, my dad had a camcorder when we were really young. I don't know how he got it or why he had it, but he had a camcorder and we were filming an air show where airplanes do stunts, you know, stunts flying around. And I remember he put on Neil Young, Running Dry, that song, and he blasted it in the car and he filmed out of the car, so the sound was just like already embedded in the footage. I don't know if you know that song, but it's just got this like amazing guitar solos that's like really dreamy and floaty, and it went super well with the airplanes flying. And I remember even at that age just being like, oh my goodness, like if you put the right sound with the right visual, it creates something completely new. And so I had that in the back of my mind already, and then once, you know, you get to do something like that with skateboarding, something you're already like really engrossed with and have the ability to shoot, and it just opened up all the doors, you know. I mean, I grew up at the era where, you know, Powell videos, and they were like already like really creative in one way, and then you had, you know, blind video and things like that, which were really raw and DIY, and it was like, oh, okay, you can just do it yourself. You don't need any gear, you just need a camcorder and a willing group of people to be going out and doing it with, you know. So yeah, that got me really sparked, and I wouldn't say I definitely had like a style or anything about it then. I was just trying to figure out how to do it still, I'd say. That kind of stuff doesn't really form till way later, I don't think. But yeah, for the first few years, I was just having a go and seeing what was up.
Was it challenging for you to decide when to skate and when to film? Like, especially early on when you were still like being on the team sponsored and all that stuff, but then people wanted to film some stuff and you're kind of like, well, I'm skating, mate, or whatever.
Yeah, no, it was definitely some, depending on the spot, you know. Sometimes you'd be like, all right, I'm in the zone, and then you're like, well, I kind of, my responsibility is also to film, you know. That was a weird dual purpose for myself. But I mean, I also knew like I definitely was never one of the better skaters, and there was always better skaters around me, so it always was pretty obvious when it was time to film.
Okay.
You know, like, unless the spot was like particularly like, oh, I had something like special for it, it was always like, well, these guys are going to do something better, so I should really film them, you know.
Sure.
And that's when it became obvious, and that also was pretty much in sync with me, what do you call it, having a lot of back injuries and kind of putting me behind the camera just because I wasn't able to skate like I wanted to or could, you know, like I should be if I'm sponsored. So and I remember towards the end having conversations with people at Etnies and being like, you know, I should just go on the trips just as I shouldn't be in the demos, I shouldn't be in the contests, or, you know, like, I'm not as good as these guys, you know. And they're like, oh, no, you're good, it's fine, you know, just get it, you know. It's like, nah, dude, like, I don't feel comfortable here, like, I'm down to film, that's where I feel more comfortable now. So yeah, that was a weird time.
Does anything stick out to you? I mean, I know you've filmed so much fucking shit, but is there any of something that sticks out to you, like one of the gnarlier, craziest things you've filmed or been there for? Like, Strubing told me, like, dude, I gotta say, Schaefer at the Loop, like, that was insane, you know, like, stuff like that. I seen Danny Way jump off the fucking Hard Rock Cafe fucking guitar, you know. What kind of shit have you've seen? A lot of crazy stuff.
Yeah, there's death-defying moments where people are like actually like risking their lives. They're pretty hairy to film, you know. I mean, one that comes to mind for sure is Heath Kirchart Mega Ramp 360. That was definitely like, you know, he was pushing it. It was the deadline. There was a lot going on for that.
At Bob's, right?
At Bob's, yeah, and you know, Heath's obviously like trying new shit is not his comfort zone. He's not on a giant hubber or something like that. He's obviously got some great transition skills. He always has, but anyone stepping to the mega ramp, anyone, even if you've been a vert skater or you're like, whatever, like, it's such a different thing. Like, I cannot even express that enough to people. Like, unless you see it in real life with your eyes physically, like, yeah, it's one thing on a screen, you see some guy flying through the frame, like, yeah, big deal. Like, when you walk up to those structures and you see the scale and the horror, the sheer, you know, they're no joke. And he worked for it really hard, you know, like, that was a pure battle. Yeah, that one was epic. I mean, he tried it on a Friday. he didn't have a cart to tow him back up to the top of the hill, so he'd walk up.
Oh
and
man, he's a warrior.
Yeah, absolute warrior. He was skating solo. Me and my buddy Jeff Henderson filming. Swift was shooting, and Kevin Wilkins was there. And he basically got 4 tries within an hour because it took that long to hike back up, catch your breath, get your shit together, psyched up, and go for it.
Oh.
And starting at 10 in the morning, he got through 2 giant bottles of water, exhausted himself, no food, and was just done, like roasted himself. And then he put one down just shy of 360, like maybe like sort of 370 or a little early, and came with such impact that his hanger ripped through the base plate, like the pivot cup ripped a hole in it sideways and broke his truck just from like under rotating. So he's got these crazy trucks. Kevin and those guys started helping, like separating the truck and getting him a new base plate from his board. Heath's just like passing out from the sun and just no food. So by the time they got the board set up again, he was just like, I can't do this, And the video was due for being sent to master like that Monday. This is on a Friday. That Monday, the master was supposed to go out. Oh, you might have lost me. How's that? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Alrighty. So yeah.
You can see those adrenaline boards too.
Yeah.
Oh, damn.
It's the whole set.
Nice. Yeah, I've been putting a few boards. I just moved in with my fiance this year, and she gave me one little section of wall. I'm like putting it in Photoshop and like making sure it's how I want it before I approach
You're planning
it.
It out, huh? Damn, that's pro. I like it. That's grown up stuff.
Yeah, it's rewarding. So you were talking about Heath doing the Bob's 360.
Yeah, so basically the first day was just exhausting. He had no food. He ran out of all his water. Only got a few tries every hour because of how long it took to hike back up the hill. And eventually when he broke his base plate, under rotating, just like came in too hard, it kind of like ruined the day for him. He was done, So the way the video was structured, for some reason he wanted his part not as part of the rest of the video. He wanted it as like an Easter egg in the DVD. Don't know why, it's just Heath, that's just Heath, he just wanted it as something different. So I'm like, okay, fine. And I was editing Heath's part. Mine was finishing the main body of the video as one big file. So I was going to insert my file. Like basically, technically, John wasn't going to have to see Heath's part when it was all said and done. So we went back on the Monday to get one last go in. I talked to Bob and he arranged for a guy to give us a ride up the hill, up and down, so he could get more tries every hour. And obviously he'd had a go at it already, so he'd had a little bit of got his head around it. And so when he came on the Monday, much better result, got right into it, nailed it. And once he made it, we all kind of just decided we weren't going to tell Minor. And we kept it secret from him. We just told him like, yeah, it didn't work out. He got tired, threw in the towel, done, And we were hoping that it was going to be at the premiere that Minor actually saw the video with the trick in it. But it was almost there. It was up until the night before the premiere when he did a sound check at the theater and he saw it. And I got a text like, oh man, you guys but we almost got it. I don't know. I just figured a project that he'd been so involved in from start to finish, it would be nice to give him a surprise,
Yeah, how cool.
Yeah. But that was one of the gnarliest things I think I've ever filmed. Over the years, there's countless times where I've been like terrified for people. Some of the stuff Chris Senn did back in the day, just hairball things that, Cardiel doing that 360 and Marseille, like transfer with a broken board, like things like that where you're just like, how is this even possible, and just in the moment things happen,
Did you film that one?
I filmed it for 4-on-1 or whatever, everyone was filming that. That wasn't like a special shoot or anything, but it's just one of those things where when it goes down, you're like, how is this guy not dying right now? You know what I mean? You're like, just nothing makes sense in those moments, and people just like, they just transcend and push things to a new level. It's epic. It's crazy that we've got to see this like from the sidelines over the years, and I'm still going out with dudes. Like I'm filming with Chris Jocelyn, people like that. Just the other day, I went for a bike ride around LA, and I live right in downtown. I see Niger filming with Ty, and they did the most insane line, just like filming with drones, and they had like permits and stuff. I think it's like a big Nike shoot and stuff like that. But I'm just like, even without like trying, I'm stumbling on like some of the craziest skateboarding I've ever seen in my life. You know, it's a trip to me that I'm still like getting to be a witness to it.
Yeah, for sure. Do you get nervous at all or butterflies when you're going to film something that you know is extra important or crazy, like I can't fuck this up feeling, or have you just done it so much that it's natural? Or
you get a certain sense of nerves for sure, like, you know, but my whole thing is just try and be prepared. Like I spend a lot of time, usually even the night before, just getting my gear together, and I tend to film with more than one camera just in case, you know, so I'll have at least one camera locked off as a full backup, and then quite often I'll give a camera to somebody else, or just, you know, just try and cover my ass in multiple ways. And obviously the bigger and more dangerous it is, the less risky you get with the filming. You just want to kind of capture the matter of fact. You don't have to get like crazy with the filming too often if it's that impressive already, you know,
let that speak for itself.
Exactly, yeah. But, you know, obviously the level of people skating these days, like, you know, sometimes you want to push the filming as well, and, you know, try and make that as a wow factor. Just like I was saying the other day, I was seeing the line of Niger did was epic, but the thing that's going to really make it epic is the way it was filmed. And when you see it, it's like a, you know, it's mind-blowing to sort of see the two come together. So where it's possible, I try and push things. And, you know, luckily I get to work with skaters that are that good, you know, like Chris Jocelyn's like, he's like really, really gnarly, and that like he's okay with me trying some weird stuff, whether it's with a drone sometimes or just like running around with a gimbal. But I'll only do that kind of stuff if I know that there's like one or two other backup plans that are like shooting as well. And if I happen to, whatever goes wrong, it's not all reliant on me, and we got some other options, you know, because these guys, I don't want to make no one do anything dangerous twice, you know, that's no fun at all.
Oh, I know that. What is it like? Do you have any suggestions or tips for people traveling? Like what, you know, the camera guy's always got the most gear. He's got to try to figure out how to bring as much camera gear as he can, and also bring what everyone else is bringing, a change of underwear, some socks, whatever it is. Do you tend to travel differently when you're in a plane with your gear than you would like coming up to SF in your car? Obviously, you can pack everything in.
Yeah, I mean, compared to your average skate, not average, but compared to most skate filmers, I bring, I think, probably a little bit more gear than I need to. You know, I don't know why I do. Maybe I just like to have a bad back carrying a lot of stuff, but yeah, I tend, you know, obviously when you're on planes, there's certain restrictions, and I have like a little scale. I have to weigh all my bags before and make sure that I get the right size bags so nothing's over the limits and that kind of thing, and certain restrictions with batteries and things like that, you know. So, and you know, like my whole camera setup is very much geared around trying to be as light and nimble as possible while pushing the quality boundaries, you know. It's different circumstances require different things, I guess, and I think everyone who films with me probably would agree. I bring a little bit too much stuff, but, you know, an extra bag or two just in case, and I've got like everything I need, whether it's a second or third camera angle, or, you know, this bit of gimbal, or that, you know, whatever it is. I don't know. I regret sometimes. Sometimes I wish I just had like a backpack, a wide lens, and a camera with a zoom, like a more camcorder setup. But because I see the benefits of that. There's a whole, you know, the whole side of skating that's way more spontaneous. And sometimes when I'm setting up my special shots, I'm missing some of the more live and intimate action. You know, if there's other filmers around, I try and like, hey, can you shoot some of this stuff while I'm getting this together? You know, because. Yeah, I do see a difference in that. I have a lot of respect for filmers who like just run the more nimble setup, and they get like this whole different, just capture more of the moment, I feel like sometimes, you know, whereas, you know, it's a different style.
Excuse me. Yeah, have you ever checked your camera?
Checked it in on a plane? Nah, never do that. Nah.
Exactly. I know I'm not going to say any names, but a couple guys, they know who they
Really?
are. They check their camera, and I'm like, dude, I cannot wait for your bags to get lost.
And I was gonna say, and it didn't. It came back okay. My goodness, that sounds.
Yeah, he's like, oh, I got a hard case. I was like, that does not matter.
Nah.
But that's kind of the anxiety I get with traveling by airplane is like, I need to get on the plane first. I need to make sure there's overhead. Like, I got my shit. Like, I can't, this won't fit between my legs. Like, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's, I don't know. Not to be like, oh, it's so hard, but it really is kind of hard. Like, there's a lot of gear you got to bring, and yeah. But it's worth it. It's, like, I'm always like, oh, I'm bringing too much stuff, but then I'll be like in some remote place and I'm like, but I got just the thing for this, and it'll work out. And I'm like, well, I'm glad I brought this with me, so I don't know. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff.
And just talk a little bit about what you were talking about as far as pushing quality versus pushing mobility and being able to film. Like, do you think that the red cam is necessary for skateboarding, or is it overkill, or I mean,
I've shot with red cameras before for projects, and I love the way they look and the way they feel. They're great, but for the investment for me and what I'm doing day to day, it doesn't work for me, but I see other people do it and it works for them, It's almost like I'd rather have like 3 smaller cameras with lenses already set up on them, so I'm not changing lenses in the field and everything's ready to go, kind of. But then they've also got the advantage of like one body, a few lenses. It's like just different strokes for different folks, like it's at the end of the day, it's what's happening in the frame, like the camera gear. You can shoot stuff on your phone and make it look epic too, It's those lines are being blurred.
Yeah,
I don't know.
My vibe is I don't want to bum out the skater, and so many times I hear these guys going, dude, the guy had to fucking set up for so long that I was kind of over it, and
I'm sure people will say that about me too, because I try and have. I know my gear takes a long time to set up, so I try and have like a gimbal's ready to go. The long lens is already on a body. I just have to throw it on a tripod, and.
Right.
And if anyone's seen me filming, they know I'm usually like sprinting back and forth between cameras. I wear a giant bum bag around full of batteries, so I don't have to leave. I can always switch a battery out. I'm very conscious of the fact that I don't want to be the reason that anyone is waiting any longer, because those precious moments could be when the cops come or whoever, you know what I mean? Like,
absolutely.
Or just like you said, the wind changes and their vibe's gone. There's this moment you got to capture, and it's like almost like paparazzi, like a journalism kind of thing. You got to be like ready to like pull out and quick draw McGraw, and yeah. But then like I said, the guys I work with are so talented. Rarely are they like hot-headed, like, oh, I gotta go now. They usually like give me a heads up, and I'm like moving fast, and they appreciate that, and hopefully we meet in the middle. But I know there's times where you just got to whip it out and pull the trigger and not fuck around with a bunch of gear. There's different times for that, for sure.
And what about the game of drones? Do we like the drone?
Game of drones. It's funny because I actually, I used to not talk shit, but I used to really just like not be into drones at all. I thought it was such a cliche, and it just seemed like everyone was just kind of would do the same shot pretty much. It was like, well, why would you go all that trouble just to shoot exactly the same thing? But for some shoots we would do, whether it was the art director or somebody would be like, oh, we want a drone shot for this. So I'd be like, all right, I can arrange that. And we'd hire a guy, and they'd do a good job and everything, but I'd always feel like this, not like a frustration, like just give me the remote. I explain what I want from the shot, and it would never be quite right, and then the quality of the gear got more reliable and, not as sketchy, I guess. I was always nervous that these things would fall out of the sky. So basically, once I started trying it, I fell in love with it, and I changed my tune pretty hard. And I know it's like not for most situations, because, it just doesn't, skating's happening on the ground, you know what I mean? It's like down here, it's not up there. But the fact that you have this other option to put a camera like literally like anywhere around you. And quite often with skating stuff, I'll film the skate, you know, with the drone like pretty close to the ground even, you know, like only like a little higher than a tall ladder might be sometimes, you know what I mean? And just have that like swooping over or whatever. But, you know, they're noisy, they're kind of interfering. They're not really legal in a lot of situations, you know, and you're already doing something sketchy, so there's no need to wave a noisy buzzing flag above you saying, hey, everyone come here, the session's, come and kick us out, you know. So I try and balance it out. But yeah, I can't deny it. I used to be a hater, and now I'm like, hey, these things are pretty freaking fun, you know, like, yeah.
I remember wanting to throw a ball at them.
Yeah, I mean, I've had arguments with people flying over my house. Just like I understand why people feel they're intrusive, invasive, and downright annoying. Basically, I get that. I am that guy too. But at the same time, I'm like, well, if you play it smart and you know do it right and pick your moments, it can actually be an amazing tool. Like the fact that we have access to that for like really quite reasonable money, and it's like relatively safe, and you know, unless you're an idiot with it and flying it in stupid places up in people's faces, then yeah, that's no good. But yeah, I don't know. I'm into them. They're cool.
I like them too. It's like a remote control. It's just such a fun thing. Like I haven't filmed that much skating with them, but I love flying around and getting like, I don't know, like you said, you can get in positions there's no other way that you could. So and I see both sides of it too.
I challenge anyone who doesn't like them to try one out for a day and tell me afterwards that it wasn't at least a little bit of fun. You know, like you can't say they aren't a little bit of fun. You know. So anyway,
for sure. Have you ever been threatened or robbed with your gear? Have you ever been like some?
Too many times, yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and
like with guns.
Gonz in Peru, Machete in Birmingham in England.
Oh shit!
Yeah, one of the first times I had a 4-in-1 video mag sent over a camera to the UK, and I was filming with that. And these two kids came up to me and my buddy Jaya in a parking lot, in an underground parking lot, and I'd seen them walk by a little while earlier, and then when they came back, he had a big puffy coat, and he whipped out a pretty big machete blade and came running at me. And I was just putting the camera in the bag, trying to like pack up, and I see him, and so I just sprinted away. Didn't get very far. I was trying to like jump through these holes in the wall that would like lead out to the pathway, but I stumbled, I fell, camera fell out. The dude jumps on top of me, he's sitting on me while I'm laying down, and was like struggling over the camera, and I look at him and I started pissing myself because he was like waving the knife and his eyes looked psycho. And I just like wet my pants, and I said to him, I was like, I'm pissing myself now, because he just like sat on me where basically you're gonna get wet, dude, you know. And so he jumped up like, ew, you know. and I get up, and he's got the camera, and at the time the tape was my tape. Basically, whenever anyone filmed me, I put one tape in, and so it accumulated a couple of months of footage. I didn't have a computer or anything to put the footage anyway. It was just all on one tape. And so this was my tape, and I'm like, hey, can I get the tape out? You can have the camera, but can I get my tape? And he thought about it for a second, tried to look for the button, and when I sort of pointed out, like, it's the blue eject button, he like freaked and swiped with his blade and then just took off running with the camera and the tape. So that was the first time. And then...
So you lost all that footage?
Yeah, I was bummed, man. There was some like... stuff that hurt. That's stuff that hurt to me, you know, like some stuff.
Yeah, it's like, fuck.
So that was that, and then but I was safe, and 4-in-1 was nice about it. They just sent me another camera, which actually got stolen in Europe at a contest, which they were nice about, and sent me another camera. But fast forward, I'm in Peru many years later on an S trip with Scuba and Rodrigo and a bunch of guys, and we'd been through South America, we've been through Panama, Costa Rica, Colombia, and the last stop was Peru. And the whole time on the trip, everyone had been telling us, like, be careful, you know, like, people will come and rob you, like, if you're out in the street with your gear. And the thing they said was, watch out for a guy on a scooter. They'll scoot up, you know a little motorbike, and point a gun at you, grab your gear, and whip off. And we even had a policeman, like, see us at a spot once. I think this was in Costa Rica, And the policeman was like, why are you filming with all your cameras here? And he just pulled up at the roundabout next to the spot and just parked his motorbike and basically guarded us while we skated. And so we didn't get robbed. And then once we got the tricks, like, we were out of there. So we were conscious of being robbed. Anyway, last few days of the trip, we're in Lima, Peru, skating this spot that didn't seem like a sketchy neighborhood whatsoever. And I'm sitting on a curb shooting long lens across the street. Scuba's over the street with the guys. Oliver Barton's a few feet to 20 feet to my left, just shooting long lens photos. And a guy comes up behind me, grabs my camera out of my hand, and I just naturally resist and hold it back. And he kind of like wraps around in front of me and puts the gun straight in my face. And so when I saw that, I just let go and I screamed. I went like, "Wah!" Like a little girl. I went, "Ah!" And I just like flipped on the ground and put my face to the ground. And I see him like running towards Oliver, and his getaway car was right there to pick him up. Oliver's camera was on the floor because Oliver was just putting his shirt on. And the guy went to grab Oliver's camera. Oliver didn't realize I just got robbed and instinctively tried to grab his own camera, and the guy shot a couple of shots in Oliver's, like pow pow towards Oliver, and jumped in the car and got away with my camera and Oliver's camera all in like 10 seconds. So yeah,
Did you guys lose footage on that too? Or had it backed up into computers? Or
thankfully that was a bit more modern times, and every day I was backing up the footage, so it was literally like maybe a couple of hours of footage from that day. Maybe a trick or two had gone down. I can't even remember, but nothing.
That's the thing with cameras getting stolen, is it sucks. The cameras are super expensive, but like you would gladly lose the camera over lose the footage.
Exactly. I mean, the things people go through to get these tricks, and you spend all this effort and dodging security or whatever it is to make it happen, and then someone goes and robs you of it. Like, no way. Yeah, cameras are definitely, you can replace them. Yeah. So so it's happened. You got to watch out, but it happens everywhere. Like, you got to keep your eye out.
Okay, we're winding down. We just got a few more. I could talk to you forever, but
I feel like I've been rambling so hard. I'm so bad.
I love it, dude. Okay. Your stories are amazing. It's great catching up too.
Cool.
What's the best part of filming BMX?
Well, first of all, they just do the gnarliest shit. It's basically the same as filming skateboarding, but they do some of the craziest stuff. When you asked earlier what some of the gnarliest things I've ever filmed, I was going to bring up a BMX trick, because some of the stuff that I've filmed those guys has been some of the more terrifying things I've ever witnessed in my life, and they go fast and high and long, and it's just, I mean, I used to ride BMX before I skated when I was a little kid, and so I have a deep passion for it and an understanding for it, and just basically they just go through the same thing as skaters do, but just on two wheels, not four. And those two wheels, the dimensions and everything about it, and tires, and it just opens up a whole different world of spots. So it's like, it's almost like when you're seeing when you're a skater, and if you could just like pave everything concrete and make it skatable, it's like that. Not that those guys ride on grass so much. There's a weird etiquette to when, like, if they're street riders, they won't like hit a spot on grass, or landing on grass is like a no-no, which I kind of don't understand, but okay. There's a lot of strict etiquette in BMX, just like skating, So I think if you're landing grass, it has to be like really worth it, Like, it has to be like, I can count like a giant massive gap off a roof into a grass hill, or something where it's like, all right, that's insane, But typically landing in grass, I don't know, it's just not cool. Unless you're technically riding dirt, which again is a whole nother thing. Like, you go to a real trail run where it's in the woods, the dudes have DIY'd it, like literally sculpted like the dirt like clay into a skate park, where there's a succession of basically spine ramp jumps launching you through the forest. That is one of the most magical things I think I've ever experienced to film. Like, there's a place in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania called Posh. It's kind of a secret, hardcore trail scene, I guess you'd say. It's a little bit like pool skating in that, you put the work in to dig out the pool and find the spots, like not anyone can just show up and ride, you know what I mean? You have to like be a little bit in on the scene or help out and contribute. But they make these wonderlands, and just seeing people like learning to ride those places off the fly, it's like, imagine going to like a really gnarly skate park where the only line is just gnarly transfer after gnarly transfer after gnarly transfer with no decks, you know, so you have to like make each one. And the only way to learn it is just to follow a local and pump. I don't even understand it, you know what I mean?
That's what I don't get. I see this shit and I'm like, what is step one to getting to that?
What's
like,
it's
there's
like
no
all
room
or
for
nothing.
error.
There's no room for error. And you're on it, and if you fucking fall on those things, you got like all kinds of metal wrapped into you, you know? It's like, it's no joke. You don't just kick away and feel things out like you can with skating, you know? It's like... in street skating, I guess you'd say like, you just show up a spot and jump like a bunch of 20 stairs in a row, like back to back, and just make them, you know? Or like, you know, like a skate park where it's just like, you know, gnarly spine transfer to spine transfer back to back. Like first try, you got to just make it through the whole run. Like, I don't get it. And yeah, it just looks fun, man. It just looks like a lot of fun. And the dudes that film are super cool. Like, legends like Ruben Alcantara, you know, like people who have just like pushed the boundaries of their sport forever to like chase hawk, like some of the younger guys, and you know, Devon Smiley, like Etnies. When I worked for those guys over the years, they've had like one of the most prestigious BMX teams ever. So I luckily had like a foot in the door at the top, and anyone I got to travel with and film was just like next level good, you know. So yeah, shooting BMX has always been like a really, really top-notch experience for me.
What's a really cool video you could suggest for somebody that wants to really be impressed by it? I don't know any of the BMX videos really.
I mean, the videos we made was well, the Etnies videos, just because they had like a really pretty prestigious team, you know. The last one was called Chapters. The one before that was called Grounded, and the first one was called Forward. But there's an OG video. There's an OG video that this guy Dave Parrick made called Nowhere Fast that was really, really sick. Like dudes are skating like UCI or riding UCI and stuff like that, like gnarly like OG riding. And then there's I can't remember the name of the video, but there's this dude's called BSD, and they do like gnarly videos too. Like there's a lot of really sick stuff going on in BMX. I only know the tip of the iceberg, and like I said, my foot in the door is through the Etnies dudes. And just from what I see through those guys, I'm just floored. But
is the hardest part kind of like in skateboarding, you want to follow film a lot, but in biking, it would probably be more challenging, yeah? Yeah,
it's pretty hard to keep up with those guys. I've tried, certain spots, certain street riding I can do, but like when the guys are going fast, I can't really keep up skating with them, they're just flooring it. I've tried to film on a bike a few times, and that kind of works, but riding one-handed and trying to film stable is pretty difficult. So
I guess if you're a good drone flyer, maybe you could follow them.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah, I've done some of that with those guys before, especially some trail runs and stuff through the trees. Looks epic.
Dude, Star Wars style.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's sick.
Yeah. No, it's that's the thing. It's like it's the same as skating, but just like different enough to be exciting. You know what I mean? Like it's yeah. And like I said, the dudes that I ride with, I mean, they're so cool. They're so, and I think as well, I always got the impression that they were really appreciative that I was like helping out with their video stuff, because I think BMXers have a lot of respect for what the skate culture has brought to the table. Like these guys are real nerds about like skate videos and stuff like that. Like they get a lot of inspiration from skateboarding clearly, and I think they just really. I always felt like they appreciated that I was down to film with those guys, and I was like always like, hell yeah, man, like anytime, So.
What's the coolest thing that you've done outside of BMX and skating with your camera?
I was lucky enough to film a couple of music videos that were cool. Like I did one for Dinosaur Jr and one for Pixies. They were cool projects to be involved.
Oh, you did a Pixies one too?
Yeah, that was
sick. I don't know about that one. You did Dinosaur Jr. over it, right? Where he's skating around and they're on their bikes and stuff. That was so sick.
That one actually, the Dinosaur Jr. one stemmed from the BMX video we did for Etnies called Grounded. The guy I worked with on that, he was approached by the director of the video, and he passed it over to me because he wasn't available, and he was like, I work with Mike on this, he's down, skating and stuff. And so we got Kyle Leeper to be the stunt double for Jay Mascis and that, and a couple of friends who ride BMX for that came as the stunt doubles for Lou and Murph, and it was really, really fun experience. Definitely like fly by the seat of your pants, like zero budget, just jump in the tour bus, film on the road, find spots near the venue, just like squeeze it in between them, like sound checks and
you did it on their tour.
Yeah, literally, like me and Kyle had to sleep on the tour bus and just like see how things worked, and that was quite an eye-opener because you think like bands travel like you think they got this big rock star bus and it's like this pimped out scene or whatever, but it's like they travel really modestly. They get like one hotel room to share a shower, and like they sleep on the bus, travel overnight, set up.
Are those guys in the same car? Like, isn't Lou and Jay not super? They don't like each other super?
No, everyone was all on the same bus, getting on fine. I think that little beef was history or whatever by the time I was involved anyway, and So Jay had the room at the back. We were all stacked up in bunks in the middle. And it was just like,
that's kind of epic, though.
Yeah,
You're a huge Dinosaur Jr fan, right? Like, I mean, you love him.
Yeah, it was a huge opportunity. And it came at the worst time. And I really, kind of shouldn't have done it. But because I wanted to do it. And if I hadn't have done it, I was like, I don't know. I just wanted to get my hands on a fun project like that. And so I squeezed it in, jammed out there last minute. And actually, when I tell the story before, but when I arrived, the manager was like, yeah, they don't want to shoot a video. They don't like shooting videos. You're going to be on the bus with them. They don't want you on the bus. And I was like, why am I here? He was just being straight up. This guy, Brian Schwartz, the manager, super rad dude. But he's like, me and the director's from England, this guy, Mark Locke. We just arrived on the plane, we're driving to meet them, and he's just like, yeah, they're not into it, but you're going to have to that's what you're going to have to deal with. And he's like, Jay seems like he's like far away or he's on drugs. That's just how he is. He's just not, he's just like, don't take it personally. These guys are going to think you're space invading. And I just wanted to hit eject. I was like, get me the fuck out of here then. Why am I was supposed to be doing something else right now, Anyway, so me and Kyle were like pretty conscious of like being in these guys' personal space, so we tried to give them space the first night. And the first day we actually went shooting, I think the band just had this like whole eye-opener that it wasn't like a typical music video production with a bunch of crew and slow and just me and a camcorder. The concept was fun because there was like stunt doubling and it was very tongue-in-cheek humor. It wasn't supposed to be serious at all. So they like that aspect of it. And they said normally the time that we spent shooting, they'd just be like killing time waiting to do the sound check while the guys set up or whatever. So they were happy to get off the bus and just cruise around and be in fresh air, riding bikes, skating. And I think we won them over. Like, they saw a couple of the shots and how they were going to match up. We were like, okay, this is the roll-in of you, and then it's going to cut to Kyle doing the trick and cut back to you. And they got it, and they were all on board, and we had a great old time the next few days. Nice. Yeah, so it was.
And Jay rolls around. He knows how to skate.
Oh yeah. He can do the Daffy Duck and push around comfortably. You know what I mean? Like, he's not trying to kickflip or whatever, but like, he can roll and cruise. And Lou and Murph were stoked to just be on bikes and stuff. Yeah, it was a really fun experience. And it was also interesting because the tour was through like tiny little towns and small venues, so it was like really off the beaten path, and it was fun,
What camera did you use on that one?
That was back when we were just using the Panasonic. I think it was the HCX 170 at the time. The old P2 cards. So that was really handy because it was like an all-in-one camera, very versatile for just like absolute run and gun, because that was it, just like show up and shoot. We had little kids. The way I found spots, I'd look on Google Earth and see where the venue was, and then see what was on the map radius of it within because we didn't have a vehicle, we just had the tour bus, so where we stopped was like that was our base. And so we shot everything within a radius of the venue, and then I would hit up skate shops and ask them for directions to spots, and a couple of times skate shops would send out a kid like like a 16-year-old skater who'd drive us to spots and stuff like that. And it was just a weird, like, improvised scene, At one point, the kid leaves us behind the supermarket at this bank wall and is like, I gotta go babysit my sister. Someone else is gonna come and pick you guys up. And, like, we were the band and stuff, you know what I mean? It's just, like, weird, like, yeah, so, yeah. But we got it done.
Yeah, well, that's a cool one. What about true or false? You went to George Harrissons' house with Tony Hawk.
True.
What was that? What was all that all about?
That was that first Bones Brigade tour that I mentioned earlier, and the very first demo was at this ramp near London that I knew pretty good, and so we hit the demo. I guess the Bones Brigade had a visit from the Harrisons the year before, where they met Mike McGill and Cab and those guys. So they showed up and were like, hey, what's up, guys? Is McGill here? And we were like, no, who are you? Well, I was just in the back, but those guys were like, no, who are you? And she's like, I'm Olivia. This is Danny, the son. Come back to our house and, come party. I think she said, come party. I was like, all right, it's kind of weird, like a mum and a kid, like, come party. But she just meant come hang out, And we didn't know what was going on. I have this, like, terrifying first demo with these guys. I'm, like, shaking the whole time. Next thing I know, afterwards, we're, like, driving into the countryside. We end up in Henley-on-Thames, this, like, kind of a nicer countryside town. And these gates open up to this manor house. And it's like a giant park, And we're driving through, and there's this, crazy old house that's, like, they bought back in the 60s and, did it all up. And got to meet George. Danny gave us a tour around the house.
Oh, whoa! Sick.
Yeah, and epic place. And Tom Petty was there.
What?
They were doing this recording for this.
The Traveling World Bureau.
Exactly. Yeah, the charity band that those guys. So they had Roy Orbison. Bob Dylan was supposed to show up the next day. And basically, I was starstruck to be with Tony and the Bones Brigade guys, Lance and everybody. And then they were starstruck to be in that situation. So there was this, like, stepping stone of, like, awe, like everyone in awe of each other. And it even went the other way around, because at the dinner table, like, after we had a tour around the place, we got to go in the recording studio in the top and, like, see all his guitars. There was, like, music laid out, ready, sheets of music for the songs that they were recording and stuff, and they were so open about everything, like, yeah, cruise around, check it all out, and, they knew we were fascinated, obviously, and they were just such down-to-earth, sweet people, just like, yeah, come on in. And
that's amazing.
At one point, we're having dinner, Olivia cooked pizza for everyone from scratch. We're having dinner at this huge oak table that looks like it's, like, medieval or something. It's like a little castle we're in, literally a castle. And at one end, Tom Petty and George Harrison are talking to the other end as Tony Hawk, Lance Mountain, and I'm in the middle, just this little kid, like, kind of watching this tennis match of, like, superstars in their own realm, just doing their thing. And they were asking what it's like to be a pro skater and travel, and they're sharing stories about what it's like to be a rock star, and the fans, and it was
before Tom Petty had skateboarding in his video, probably, right?
I think he had. I think free falling you're talking about, right? Yeah, I'm pretty sure that was already out and about. I want to
Kelly Rosecrans, I think, was in that one.
Yeah, I could be wrong. I could be wrong though. But either way, they were super chill.
But you were like 15 or something? How old were you?
I want to say like 16 or 17 maybe. No more than 18. 16 or 17, damn. I think. Yeah.
Do you have any photos from that?
Yeah. I posted some on Instagram. I'll send you them. They're pretty funny. Like, there's one that Lance Mountain.
Amazing.
Yeah, one that Lance Mountain gave me. He took. There's like a little, large pond, small lake kind of thing with these rocks on it. And there's like a famous photo of George sitting on there with he's like meditating on these rocks. Anyway, so we're out on there and there's a picture of me with the manor behind it, and I just look, the smile couldn't be bigger on my face. Like, it's just like ripping my face wide open, my smile. And so couldn't believe I was there, because my parents were real big Beatles fans, so that was like, the magnitude of it was not lost on me. Like, they were, they played Beatles music when I was growing up. It was like a big deal, especially in England. You knew who the Beatles were, so.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Had you been to Liverpool?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Liverpool's
Rad.
Yeah, it's a rad city. Tough town. Good skaters.
I need to get out there. Okay, a couple of things from my perspective I need help with, and then we're out of here. But what are your feelings about the internet and the modern era skateboard videos, with like the conveyor belt feeling of just like there's less and less obviously full-length videos and more like single parts, but those parts aren't lasting even as long as the full-length videos used to. How do we stay motivated to put in the effort that it takes to put these out when they're not getting as much shine? All that kind of stuff.
I mean, it's kind of relative though, you know? So, yeah, there's a conveyor
Things
belt.
are getting easier to make.
Well, yeah, there's that. I mean, skaters are more and more consistent, you know, so they're getting their tricks quicker. So in that respect, the filmer editor's job's a little bit easier. You know, a full-length video part, I've seen them done in a month now, which isn't like a top quality video. Jocelyn did his Welcome to Etney's part in 3 weeks. And that was like a solid part, you know?
He's gnarly.
Yeah, so I mean, obviously he's an extreme example, but like that's the kind of thing we're dealing with these days. So there's that. And yeah, there's an endless conveyor belt of media and good parts coming and going, and it's hard to sort of like, you know, have anything that has like memorable traction. You know, like when we grew up, things were so few and far between that if it was of any quality that it really embedded in your mind, and you didn't have so much good footage coming at you, so you would repeat view the same thing over and over, and every detail about it, from like the keychain he wore on his pants, or like the weird thing he did with his shoes, or like how he pushed and how he wore his hat, the music, all these details were like really, really deeply absorbed by the viewer and the fan. And I'm not sure kids get quite that. They're not going to get that experience. You know, I don't see anyone repeat viewing anything more than a couple of times these days. Even the most shocking, mind-blowing skateboarding does not get that repeat attention these days. So that's very, very different. But then, you know, the other argument could be that you're measuring scale. You know, how do you measure it? So back then, the scene was overall smaller. So you had less outlets to view skateboarding, but the amount of eyes on that fan, or fanning out on that skater, or that video part, or that brand, that company, whatever it is, it was like a certain amount of people. And now I feel like you're still reaching that same amount of people, probably more, but you're just not reaching the other 50 million skaters out there. It's just that many more skaters out there, I feel like. So now there's like all these pocket scenes, you know, and you know,
that's a good point.
Does that make sense? Like,
totally.
Like I'll hear about.
There's more genres within itself, kind of, right?
So many genres, so many layers. You know, like it's really amazing that anything goes. I was just having a conversation with someone recently about how strict the '90s were, and I was like, yeah, it was. You know, everyone's got this cool nostalgia about the dope '90s and how progressive and epic it was for skating. But if anyone was there, it was kind of harsh. You know, like people made these weird rules about what you could and couldn't do, and what was cool and what wasn't cool, what tricks were in and out, and it was awful in that respect, you know? I mean, I felt it as someone who skated like every type of skating, and suddenly like I was literally told by sponsors, put your pads away, only street skate. I'm like, why? What do you mean? Like, I like skating vert too, you know? Like things like that was just weird to me, and even to the music and the culture. So the fact that these days skateboarding is like so open, more and more open-minded, more and more genres. Like the prime example is you'll see some new name you haven't heard of, you see it on Instagram, you click on them like, oh, who's this person? And you're like, oh my goodness, they've got 90,000 fans and a whole world of people following them. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
Just because I didn't see them doesn't mean that they don't exist and kill it and do their own thing in their world and are loving it. You know what I mean? Like,
it gives access to way more regions. You don't have to move to California anymore.
Exactly. And I'm happy I did, but like if I grew up in this era now, I probably wouldn't have transplanted across the world. Like at the time it made sense for me, and I've made a good life. I'm happy, but the fact that it's just that much more, I think it's just more democratic, that the whole world can have a go, and it's not so elitist about where you live and if you have access to certain brands or know the right guy and know the right photographer, and like, because that's what turned people off. I think like my friend Curtis McCann from back in the day, he was like, oh, it's so structured, it's not as free and open as it appears to be from the outside. And thankfully skating's matured in that way, at least, and that we're a lot more open-minded, and as long as you're down having fun and just getting down for the right reasons, everyone's like, yep, cool with me, like, you still need your grossos. And to people like that who like let you know what skateboarding is supposed to mean, there's still that. I'm not saying like it has to be like let go completely, because there is a reason why we enforce these rules and we care, those things matter. I'm not saying those things don't matter, but I just mean like you can be open to, you should be open to new things and seeing where it takes you, and that's skating to me.
Is there any fear that we should have losing Phelps and Grosso kind of close to each other, like having the guard let down for that kind of stuff? Like, I know that when Jake died, I was obviously so much closer to Jake than Grosso, but to me, my first, like, seriously, the first day that I knew Jake was dead, I was like, what does this mean for the mag? What does this mean for, like, such a bigger thing than just a good friend of mine that passed? Like, who the fuck is going to call out the clowns? And is this going to open the gate to all the kooks? Like, all that kind of stuff. Like, hate to sound like an elitist or anything like that, but, like, these things are important to our culture.
These are the things that make skating sick, otherwise it would be kook. I know what you mean. I mean, I don't know if there's anyone ready to like step up to those roles, because those are two really, really unique people you were talking about right there. I think they broke the mold when they made them, like these guys are super individual, but if you think about it, they have had decades of influence that I don't think is going to go away anytime soon. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, I mean, there's murals of the dudes and stuff like that, where people just like, I'm still watching or whatever, so it's like, I think that what they've done has left enough of a mark that it'll be more of a community policing rather than one guy having to physically call you out, whatever, verbally call you out. It's just, I think they did enough to make it last. But if there's somebody else steps up to it, I'm sure skateboarding will embrace it. I mean, think about how like crazy like Big Brother was back then. It was like so controversial. But you need somebody like throwing a wrench in the works, or like spicing things up a little bit, like calling things out, or like just throwing a different perspective on things, whether you agree with it or not. If everything is just too like samey and safe and playing by all the rules, and it's like, well, what the fuck happens to skateboarding?
And those are the things that drew us here, and those are the things that I struggle with from time to time. Is like, all right, what brought me to skateboarding is not what's the dominant thing in it anymore. And so, like, I don't want to be the stale, bitter old guy that can't acclimate to the times, but I also see, like, some shit I'm not happy with. And when I was a kid, the fucking last thing I ever wanted to say was back in my day, or like, you guys, I hated that shit. And then you get older and you're like, I gotta bite my tongue because I want to say, when I start, you couldn't just come to the mag and ask for a t-shirt. Are you fucking crazy?
Totally.
Like, walking through the door was scary as hell.
It was very, very different. I mean, it's times change, man. I don't know. You just gotta roll with it. You look down, there's always going to be those four wheels rattling underneath you, and when you hit a rock, you still go down hard and it still feels the same. Like some stuff isn't going to change, you know what I mean? Like the act of skateboarding is the act of skateboarding, and there's plenty of people doing that just right and just keeping it real, The others that take it into these weird directions, they're more peripheral. They're not, they'll come and they'll go, and those are fashions, the trends, their waves. But the horrible word of the core is, there's a reason why it's the core, is because it's right in the middle, and that's rooted. That's not going nowhere.
That's a good point. Jake used to always say that. He's like, hey, those guys might be the hot fucking recipe of the week, but we were here before and we'll be here after. Like, just wait them out. Don't worry.
Yeah.
The other last thing too is, one of the things I struggle with is, I don't know how you feel about this, but like the equipment becoming cheaper, easier, more accessible. A perfect example is you used to use film and not be able to see what you're doing when you're shooting a photo.
Sure.
Now you can totally shoot 100 photos till you get the right one. That stuff is hard for a guy that grew up and paid a lot of money and like dealt with like people telling you that your photos were always out of focus or whatever, like, and going through all those, learning curves. These are things that us older people, I think, like, have a hard time. Again, you got to bite your tongue not to be like complaining or the old guy in the room, but like these things are real,
Yeah, I mean, again, like if you have a foundation in sort of like these disciplines from the earlier formats where you did have to do things more manually, yeah, you might have a little bit better of an understanding about it. But I don't know, if people can make a shortcut to get to a same or better result, more power to them, I guess. I don't know, it's not my job to please them. It is weird, like you said, you're like, oh wow, look how fast-tracked everything is. I mean, you can shoot something on your phone in 2 clicks with a filter and it looks like it was shot on Super 8, and normally you wouldn't, like you said, you wouldn't see that film back for like weeks, and you weren't sure if anything happened right. And now you're almost trying to make it shitty and more grainy and more scratched and out of focus. You're like, all right. So it's different times, but I like the democracy of it. I like the fact that you can just see a video from some kid in some country you've never heard of maybe, and they shot it on their phone or a GoPro, and it's like, whoa, that's really creative. Or that, look what they're doing over there. I think it's nice, like coming from somewhere far away myself where I wasn't the center of where it was happening, and any access or any opportunity I see as a very valuable thing to people. So if more people around the world get to sort of have a taste of the fun we're having, maybe it might not lead to some like career success or whatever, but if they're just having fun doing the thing that we think is sick too, then that's awesome, man.
Yeah, I can't imagine kids nowadays trying to be the next like guy in this world where it's like, well, what's different about you than those 500 people next to you?
I always feel like I want to try and like evolve and progress myself, just to feel like I'm trying new things, just like before when we're setting up the audio or things like that, where it's like any little detail I can learn that might help me down the line, whether it's for skate projects or outside projects. I don't know, I just try and take those opportunities if I can, but yeah, I'm a nerd like that.
Same.
I feel like I'm trying to keep up with the nerds. I feel like everybody else is always like 2 steps ahead, and I'm like, all right, that's what's going on. Okay, well,
Yeah, I got these wizards around me that I'm like, dude, you get the younger guys, they pick up things so fast, and I'll be like, okay, I got it.
Yeah, I got it. Yeah, I've had to teach classes before. Like, there was a couple of times I did these, like I was like the guest speaker in front of all these kids, and they were 12 to 16-year-olds, and half the questions they had for me, I was like, dude, I don't even know. Like, I'm going to learn. I introduced the talk with like, I'm going to learn from you probably more than you're going to learn from me. So let's have at it. Like, let's open up. Let's make this a 2-way, because I don't know. Yeah, kids are amazing nerds, and they've got phones and computers that access the world of technology, So why not share? I mean, that's how I learned. I remember when I arrived in the States, I didn't know a damn thing about computers and stuff like that, and it was, friends like John Holland, I'd call him up like, hey, how'd you do this in After Effects? I want to make this title do whatever, like this, make this effect or whatever. And so, yeah, it's just good that everyone's so open to share, because otherwise we'd never get anywhere.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's what's great about our community. I hit up Ewan all the time. I'm like, dude, I'm trying to get this audio filter. Like, what do I do? It's like, oh, dude, you just do this.
Yeah.
It's good.
Yeah.
Okay, well, fuck, like I said, I could talk to you all day, take in plenty of your time. Do you have any documentaries or film recommendations for us? In these pandemic times, me and my fiance are watching a documentary every night, so I've been trying to get people's, like, have you seen the Crumb one, or like whatever?
Oh, man,
do you have time to watch TV or movies?
Yeah, especially right now, there's a little bit of extra time, so I've been watching some stuff. What's good these days? I mean, it's been out for a while now, but if you like political stuff, the Active Measures one is pretty insightful.
Active Measure?
Active Measures.
Oh, I don't know that one.
Yeah, it's worth checking out. It up. Yeah, it's on Apple TV and Hulu and a few things like that, a few platforms. That one's just more of a political thing about kind of how we got to the state of where we're at right now. What else is a good one I watched recently? Dude, you know what I just watched? It was a movie. It was an Adam Sandler movie, and it kind of threw me off. It really surprised me. It was
I saw that too. I think.
What they call it? Uncut Gems.
Yeah, that was good.
That was a gnarly movie. Like,
it's way different than any of his other films.
Well, you know when I don't know if you know when you start Netflix or you're going through Netflix and you leave it on something for a second and get distracted. The film just starts. So
yeah.
I was making a coffee. I turn around. I'm like, oh, what's going on here? And next thing I know, I just got drawn into it. I had no idea that it was going to take up 2 hours of my life, and that's a really intense ride. I mean, it's pretty heavy film. There's a lot of aggressive stuff happens, but it's once you're in it, you're like, I can't not watch this. Like, what's going to happen next? And right to the very end. So that was a pretty interesting one. Another classic documentary, not classic, but a good one that came out a few years ago. I always recommend to friends is Searching for Sugar Man. You seen that one?
Oh, we did. We saw that. That's
one's
really
nice.
good.
It's just a sweet story how it sort of turned out.
I like that. Yep.
Yeah, I'm drawing a blank.
I'm drawn to so many dark ones. We saw this one on Netflix called Operation Odessa. It's so good.
Oh yeah.
It's insane. Like they steal from fucking the cartel. They fucking have a summer. It's so insane. You're like, what? Those stories like where it's just like this is the next level. Like,
yeah.
Because skateboarders have fucking crazy lives and crazy stories. So anything that can impress us is bonkers, right?
Yeah.
It's like, so that one is really good though. The guy they're talking about, they're like, this guy, there's no way. Everyone they interview, they're like, there's no way you're going to be able to interview this guy.
Yeah.
And then that's the lead into them interviewing him on an airplane in some remote place. And the guy's just like, what the fuck do you want? Hey, and he's like giving them out. It's so good. You got to check that one.
That's amazing. Yeah. The other one that I'm drawing a blank too, but the one about the drama. Ginger Baker.
Something Ginger Baker.
Ginger Baker, is that it?
Yeah, Ginger Baker. Yeah.
It's called something about like Beware of Mr. Baker. The documentary is called, and that one's a good one. I think it's called Beware of Mr. Baker, and it's about Ginger. Yeah, it's freaking epic. That one, I like that one a lot. It's this young kid, young kid made it, and like he basically just like kind of fakes that he's from Rolling Stone or whatever, and gets to meet him, and like says he wants to do this interview, and then finds out that Ginger Baker's just a very, very eccentric character. And I'm just gonna leave it there. You just gotta watch it. Yeah.
Okay. No, I will. I love drums. That's fucking all right. I'm in.
Yeah, he's an insane character with a lot of stories, and yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, Beware of Mr. Baker.
All right. Well, which song should we take it out of here with? You got a jam you want to fucking play?
Yeah, I mean, for no particular reason other than it makes me happy every time I listen to it. But let's listen to Dr. Alimentado, Best Dressed Chicken in Town.
Okay, let's do that. And one last thing, forgot to mention. You and I work together. I think the only time we've ever really worked together, we've worked together obviously through our lives, but in person on the Big Island, Antonius Dincho's wedding.
Yes,
you and I fucking combined forces to film, and then you edited it. That's our backup
gig, is our wedding productions. If all the skateboarding goes down the hill, we got wedding videos to fall back on. You and me, bro. That was a good
one of the best weddings of all time. Like Big Island, Chris Senn hosting. It was great.
Yeah, and a super memorable time. That trip was epic, and just all the people and location. It was awesome. Really glad to be a part of that. Yeah.
Well, cheers, man. And what do you work? What's this thing you're working on now? You're doing. I just sent you some footage. You guys doing something with Sheckler?
That was a recent Etnies promo for like their competition pack. So that's why we were digging out old contest footage of those guys, and kind of like the edits were sort of trying to like show how like what you take from the streets you do to the contest. Like cutting old footage of them like doing their tricks in the street and in the street course. So that was a little Etnies project. So I'm still doing stuff with those guys, but been freelancing a lot, and last couple of years or so, and that's been going great. Doing a lot of stuff for ESPN. My buddy Jessee Fritsch runs a production company called Anton I. So they have a lot of gigs that I help out with. Some of them are skate related, some of them are not. So that's fun. I like doing stuff outside of skating because, you know, I feel like I always learn so much from the people I work with. And started doing some stuff with Colossal Media, the guys that do hand-painted murals. These guys, they're based around here, well, New York and LA, but I'm documenting them putting up like huge building-sized murals. They're all hand-painted and stuff like that. So that's a fun little gig. Just, I don't know, just trying to do a lot of variety. Been doing a lot of food stuff recently. That's interesting, shooting food, you know? Yeah, just taking whatever work comes my way and just trying to learn from it and, you know, using my time to sort of just grow from it. You know, I feel like I've done so much skating over the years that, you know, that I really enjoy it. I love it, but it's also like I'm just enjoying learning new experiences and hopefully maybe bring them into skating too if I can.
Rad. Well, fuck, dude. Thanks so much for taking so much time, and always a pleasure to fucking spend time with you, see you. Hopefully we'll see each other in person sooner or later.
Yeah, this lockdown can't last forever, and yeah, we'll be out there again soon, high-fiving in the streets, and yeah, thanks again for the opportunity to do this. It's been really fun catching up and chatting. Hopefully you don't have to edit too much of this down. I know I talk forever, but
no, we're letting this one roll 100%. This one, 100% no editing on this one. The only thing we're doing is adjusting the audio levels.
Okay, well, I got three tracks for you to pick from. You got all sorts of levels. Hopefully one of them works. Fingers crossed. All right,
we got a boom versus a lavalier versus the computer mic.
Dueling audio levels. Right on, brother.
Fuck yeah. Thank you so much, man.
Appreciate everything. Take care.
Stay healthy.
Yeah, you too. Talk soon. Bye.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Talking Schmit. You can subscribe to the show on iTunes, Anchor, Spotify, or anywhere you get your podcasts. When you subscribe, you'll get notifications every Tuesday of new episodes the minute they become available. Also, please leave reviews and a 5-star rating. It's the best way to help the show grow. All of the episodes will always remain free, but if you would like to help support the show, you can do so at TalkinSchmit.com, where you can pick up some merchandise like t-shirts, beanies, hats, and stickers. The website has an entire archive of all of the episodes, with extra photos and videos. Email us with any suggestions, comments, or ways that the show may have improved your life at talkinschmit@gmail.com. All interviews are conducted, edited, and produced by Schmitty. The intro music is Mary's Cross by the band Nature. Very special shout out goes to the executive director, Sharal Camisa.
Shout out.
Love it! This is Talking Schmit, where the Rolodex is deep, but the conversation is deeper.